Sword of Coming Chapter 1192. Chapter 1192 Senior Brother and Junior Brother. In the territory of Yingchuan County, there were 3 horsemen driving side by side in the wind and snow. Following the map instructions, they branched off the relatively wide official road and turned into a small mountain road. At noon, just because the heavy snow fell non-stop, the 3 people's vision blurred, making the already rugged mountain trails more and more difficult. Thanks to the 3 mounts, all of them were not inferior horses, but horses from the Beijing Taoist Academy. It is said to be a descendant of the mountain scorpion. Although the blood is thin, it is like walking on the ground. This time, besides their respective customs clearance documents, the most important thing was the official document that was written by the minister of the Ministry of Officials in their own capital, drawn and stamped by the real person protecting the country, and approved by the largest Taoist temple in Ruzhou. Leading the ride, a young woman wearing a black gauze crown and a thick and warm blue-green Taoist robe. With curvy eyebrows and plentiful cheeks, his figure looks thin and solid, riding a light yellow horse. A pair of embroidered shoes were slightly exposed and the golden stirrup was lightly tapped. There are 2 horses behind, a man and a woman. The man rides a black horse, dressed in elegant green robes, wearing bamboo hats on his head and swords on his back. The woman is burly, her skin is already dark, and it looks even more like black charcoal under the snow, but she is dressed in a fancy dress, a carmine red dress with gold circles and embroidered cuffs. As a servant girl, she is not very old, but her figure is too strong. With a knife hanging from the waist. She was also riding a tall horse with an old box hanging on each side. A box of clothes, a box of books. There is also an invaluable square-inch thing which the young lady also gave her to keep. It was a treasure bestowed by the grandfather of the family when the young lady entered the cave. With square-inch objects, they can travel lightly this time except for their messenger bags and the 2 boxes hanging on both sides of the saddle, which can be folded and crossed, food boxes and flowers and bottles and jars. They are all packed in squares. A woman named Jiansu who came to Yingchuan County, Xianxia County, to serve as the abbot of a small Taoist temple. She just entered the cave in the winter last year and has no Taoist name yet. Senior brother Chai Yu styled Yunjia Guanheijing, Taoist name Xingma. His ancestral home is not in Nanshan Country, which belongs to Yingchuan County, but in the Hulu Country where Shimon's Golden Coffin sect is located. The ancient trees in the country are towering and it is very famous in Qingming Ruzhou. The maid Su Qing nicknamed Fancy. He is an out-and-out flower nerd, who is good at planting all kinds of flowers, especially peonies. In the capital, Jian's gardens are all well known, and half of the credit goes to Fancy. In the past year the weather has been strange. First, there was a severe drought in the summer last year, which is said to be rare in 500 years. The water gods and Narcissus all over the world complained incessantly. I heard that many hebos were directly exposed to the sun, and their golden bodies were cracked, and then it continued into winter. Blizzard. Let's just say that today is late spring and the snow is still as big as a flower. Chai Yu held up his hat, put his hand to his mouth and said, "Junior sister, in the spring of next year the Jade Emperor City will issue a Taoist number as usual. When you arrive at the Taoist temple in Xianxia County, don't forget to make up a few favorite Taoist names. It's best to send them to the Jingqing family and the Sherman Zushitang before the fall of this year, so that both parties can do it for you early. Prepare, help you plan, strive for a certain Taoist name you like, and make sure that you can pass the Jade Emperor City. At least 1 letter exchange. Listen to the advice of the senior brother. Some Taoist names that are too meaningful, don't think about them. If you try your luck, you will definitely not pass." Although each Taoist official has 3 self-designed Taoist names, which can be reported by the Jade Emperor City, but the 14th Qingming Prefecture, a grand event that can only be met in a period of time, I hope here. There are so many Dao officials in the world, millions of them, 3 per person together. There are tens of millions of Dao names, and the difficulty of successfully obtaining a seal can be imagined. Jiansu smiled and interrupted her brother's broken thoughts. Discussing a seal with the Jade Imperial City of Baiyujing is a matter of chance. It's normal to pass and it's a surprise if you pass. Anyway, if you can't get a seal, if it's a big deal, just use our own backup Taoist numbers in Nanshan Country. Whether or not the state officials have Taoist numbers is a watershed. This means that the Taoist priests have found the masters, such as the vulgar and the crown, and have a character. It's just that in the world of Qingming, it is not easy to have a Taoist title. The imperial courts of various countries have specially set up an archives dedicated to recording Tao numbers. Because the 14 states of the world, large and small Taoist temples, and all the jungles in the 10 directions belong to the Baiyujing, the Taoist title of any Taoist official cannot be repeated. Therefore, every time the period of Jiazi comes, it is a grand event of seeking the Tao, as many as the Crucian carp crossing the river. If you can get a Taoist title issued by the Jade Emperor City and send an official document, it will be regarded by Taoist officials as getting the Tao. Dao, asking for a big good sign, so Chai Yu and Jiansu would call it seeking a seal in their small talk. Moreover, the Taoist priest who founded the Jade Emperor City was also the headmaster of Baiyujing and the first disciple of Taoist ancestors, so the Taoist title obtained from this is of great significance. Therefore, the Dezhangjiao Koming is like the master of the Taoist official Jiazi's heyday of the imperial examination. In order to compete for and reserve the Taoist title on the spring day, the Jade Imperial City of the White Jade City, which is promulgated by the Taoist genealogy records of the Taoist priests in charge of the world, will open the door in Zishur and transmit the flying swords and colorful talismans like a swarm of locusts. Covering the sky and covering the sun, they flocked here, just to help the Taoist officials in their own dynasty dojo to get a beautiful Taoist name that was seen early. In the 14 states, many of the great monks who had been in the upper 5 realms for a long time did not even have a serious name so far, in order to take a chance, and as a result, they have failed to obtain a seal after more than 10 times. Hua Qiao stretched out her hand to brush off the snow between the manes of the horse's neck and said, "Miss, the imperial court has reserved a road number from Baiyujing to our Ruzhou. It has always been passed by the Qijin dynasty, and it may be necessary to repeat it during the period. It was screened by the other great dynasties and finally came to our Nanshan kingdom. There are only 100 or so names left and they are all picked up by others. The meaning is mediocre. It doesn't look like a Taoist number anymore. I don't even know some of the characters, but there are still some 3-character and 4-character Taoist numbers. Is it like a word? If it's a little more decent, it has long been snatched by those 2 sect patriarchs, or by the largest Taoist temples went through the back door with the imperial court and quietly bought them with a lot of money. Finally, the few good Taoist names left were all scrambled and robbed, breaking their heads." Seeing that the younger sister was still a little absent-minded, Chai Yu said, "There are often disturbances because of this, and many wealthy and aristocratic families are fighting openly and secretly for this, and they are at odds." Jiansu stretched out her hand to take the falling snow falling on her palm and muttered, "Isn't the Taoist name also an external object? It's understandable for ordinary people to compete for fame and fortune, but we are Taoist priests." Chai Yu shook his head, feeling helpless, and was about to defend himself, so that junior sister's ideas would not be so naive and unrealistic. Jiansu obviously didn't want to quarrel with her senior brother. She already smiled and said, I know, I will definitely take care of it." In addition, the Taoist names of all Taoist officials in the upper 5 realms, even those who have passed away, must not repeat their Taoist nicknames in future generations. Hearing that Headmaster Lu has always suggested that the Taoist names of those Taoist officials in the Jade Pure realm in history be open to the outside world. It is rumored that the headmaster also suggested that the names of some deceased Earth Immortals could be sealed and kept for 100 years on behalf of Baiyujing. The descendants, disciples and grandchildren of the various dojos or family members, if anyone succeeds in becoming an Earth Immortal in the future, they can fill the gap and be regarded as inheriting this Tao title. Before that, the Taoist priest could also follow the process and have a Taoist name that came step by step. But when he became an Earth Immortal, if he wanted to inherit the Taoist name, he could take a trip to the Jade Emperor City of Baiyujing and retrieve it in person. The Tao name of the patriarch of the dojo or the ancestor of the family, and the 2 Tao names do not conflict. There is no need to choose. You can have 2 Tao names at the same time, just like the self-name and alias of the literati. But unfortunately, neither of these 2 proposals was approved. The whole world knew that the Taoist priest Baiyujing who could reject the suggestion of Master Lu could only be Master Yu. I heard that there is no such emphasis on Haoren Xianxia. Only some monks from Daxian Mansion will have their Tao names strictly reported and filed by the Zhongtu Confucian Temple. The genealogy monks of the Shaoman school, as long as they don't make any noise, they secretly enjoy themselves when they get cheap and don't publicize the matter, and of course don't take the old Taoist name that is too famous. Generally speaking, it's nothing. The Confucian temple, the academy couldn't manage it, and the local court didn't want to. As for those so-called Yamazawa Yeshio, you can take the road number casually. To say that the wild world, let alone mention it, is a lawless land and there is no rule at all. The maid Hua Qiao was very worried. Miss, when Hong Miao stepped down, he left a big mess. The identity of the female ghost who is running and breaking the ban has not yet been determined. This ghost has not been captured yet. The trail is unknown, so we still have to be careful. Try to take the post road, official road, as much as possible and avoid these mountain trails. The ancient roads in the mountains are inaccessible, the roads are narrow and horses cannot get up at all. The grooves between the mountain roads are mostly horseshoe potholes left by the tea horse and salt merchants. With a turn, Chaiyu supported the bamboo hat on the top of his head, nodded and said, "What Hua Qiao said is not bad, we still have to be careful." Jian Su smiled and said, "According to the county records, there is an abandoned gymnasium with a long history in the mountain. We have seen it and we will continue to take the official road." Chaiyu said helplessly, "Junior sister, if I remember correctly, you seem to have said that when you visited the Huangting Temple at the foot of Jitsuifeng Mountain before, and the following two ancient ruins. The largest historical site in Ruzhou is the Huangting Temple built at the foot of Jitsue Peak. She worshipped the ancestors with a high morality, and was the deputy city lord of Nanhua City. She was honored as Madame Wei, and the Taoist name was Zixu, the first female Yuanjun in the Qingming world. Mrs. Wei is also one of the 10 candidates in the world this time. Among her direct disciples, there is a female crown gifted with divine powers, who is in charge of the blooming and falling of all the flowers in the world. In the history books, she once had the act of distributing the fragrance to the mountains and not blooming in the spring of the world, so she was almost detained by Zhang Jiaoyu himself. The Yanxia cave in Jinhua Palace thought about it, but the headmaster helped to intercede and then walked with the female crown to all the states in the world, returned Bai Hua to the world and made up for the fault, and then this punishment was relieved. Generally, large Taoist temples, especially certain palaces, often preserve a large number of inscriptions with a long history, such as the rebuilt inscriptions of a certain year and a certain month, the inscriptions of pilgrims' donations, or the inscriptions that record the family's production per mu, and other types of inscriptions. Incense tablet inscriptions that specifically record the inheritance of Taoism. Every time there is a temple fair, merchants gather and rub shoulders. Every time there is a Dharma meeting, it is a miscellaneous place of immortals and mortals, and the spirits and monsters who take shape come together. Come here to listen to the treasures of green words of Taoist immortals. The bells and drums are chiming and the jade chimes are melodious. The 3 riders came to the dilapidated gymnasium in the mountains in the snow, and they were all disappointed. Originally, according to the content recorded in the local county annals, there was an anonymous dragon and snake song inscribed on the wall of the inner hall of the gymnasium. There is an illusion about the Immortal family. There was a young woodcutter who strayed into this mountain. By chance he was taught the Immortal method. He returned to the mountains with his Taoist companions and built a gymnasium. The master of the Taoist gym is good at dancing. He once erected a screen in his own Taoist gym, and used his brush to dot the horses, which are ever-changing and lifelike. A horse jumps out of the screen and turns into a spirit to gallop between the heavens and the earth. The horse on the screen will lose its color. After 100 years, the painted horses have all turned into line drawings. The owner of the museum likes to play in the world and he often hides his name. Eagles and sparrows are vivid, they are true when they are seen and they are false when they reach out and brush them. Legend has it that this fairy once painted a dragon on a white silk cloth and presented it to a certain last dead state monarch. Clouds lingered in the scroll of the silk cloth, and he kept it in the painting box, and there were often thunderous vibrations. In the end, the owner of the museum brought 2 the Taoist companions flew away together. The rest of the empty gymnasium, passing woodcutters and custodial merchants, all said that they could often hear horses raising their hooves on the wall at night, as if they were asking for water and fodder from passers-by who were staying here. In the end, when they arrived at the gymnasium, which had already been reduced to ruins, there was nothing to be seen. Not to mention the screen, even the horse map on the side hall wall is full of chisel marks, and even many blue bricks have been pried away. It is estimated that they were carved into brick ink stones, which became the later literati clear the desk on the table. Jian Su sighed. It's a pity that it was abandoned like this. otherwise it would be more than enough to build a Fuqing Daoyuan here. Yu smiled and said, if the county annals record is true, and the pavilion's master Immortal once painted Sulong as a gift to the emperor of the previous dynasty, then the founding emperor of Nanshan Kingdom, who is the new king, is of course unwilling to rebuild the pavilion here. He took a break in the side hall, reluctantly used the broken wall to avoid the wind and snow, and took out the things from the square-inch objects, started to build a fire, set up a pot to cook rice, and warmed a pot of rice wine to the Taoist official Yu. Sitting on the small embroidered stool, Jiansu remembered something and asked, what is the specific situation over there in the spiritual realm view? Miss, I finally remembered the business. The maid Hua Qiao hurriedly put down the bowls and chopsticks, and took out a booklet from her sleeve which finally had some use. It was the content she carefully sorted out from various channels, one by one recorded by her. As soon as the previous Guanzhou Hong Miao left, there were no Taoist priests in the temple. There were only a few Taoists who lived there. The temple blessing was Lu Feng. He was 53 years old. He was a local. Half of the fields belonged to their Lu family. It seems that the Lu family has an ancestral teaching. Each generation of the Lu family in future generations should allocate a little incense field to the Taoist temple. Do your best. Jiansu smiled and nodded and said, I'm very kind. When we get there, we'll settle in the Taoist temple first, then visit Liu's family, prepare a decent gift and talk about our hearts. Yu said with a smile. Actually, Hong Miao, as the abbot Taoist priest, has never had a Taoist ultimatum. He is only an alternate Taoist priest. You are in the same situation as you. It is an exceptional appointment to be the master of the temple. Jiansu said, it's not an unusual use. After all, Hong Laoguan is a candidate Taoist priest in Guanheijing. It's not a good job to come to Xianxia County to serve as the abbot Taoist priest. Hua Qiao grinned. Ma Zhong, Lu Feng's distant relative, is the spiritual view of entering through the back door. Hong Miao specifically mentioned in his resignation document that this Ma Zhong has a certain opportunity to practice. Of course. Hong Miao's resignation document also has an appendix, which does not need to be filed at the official side. Naturally, it is deliberately reserved for the new Guanzhou for reference. It is said that Lu Feng, the temple Zhu, promised the spiritual realm concept in his early years, and will allocate 2 acres of paddy fields to the Taoist temple. And a mountain full of persimmon trees. The mountain has already been handed over, but the 2 acres of paddy fields have been dragged on for all these years, and at first glance, it is suspected of repayment. Oh, poor mountains and rivers make bad people. Dienka Chonggung is a local literati with a middle-of-the-road family. When he was young, his family was rich. In the counties of Yingchuan County, he was a famous playboy. He was used to living a comfortable life. He is too old to make ends meet. When he gets older, he will be in a pinch. It is said that it is because Ling Jingwen owed him a debt in his early years. It is a confused lawsuit. It seems that the amount is not small. It was not easy to pursue it later, so Chonggung was allowed to enter the Taoist temple as a pawn, which has been an honest duty these years. Chen Tsong, 16 years old. He is a relative of Dienka Chonggung. They entered the spiritual realm in the same year. Lin Xian. Hey, next to the handle, add a word of consideration. My family has 3 stores in the county seat and I have a little money. It is a wealthy family. Their ancestors were all local county magistrates. Because a few years ago our Nanshan Kingdom vigorously abolishing the redundant staff of Baishu subordinates, Lin Xian's father's generation could not survive, so he turned to business, and now he has a good relationship with the county clerk, and he can barely count as a local snake, which is relatively reluctant. The soil paste. The soil paste that all the yang energy is steaming, the soil paste is pulsating. When Hua Qiao said this, she also smiled. The rain urges the soil to move and all the plants and flowers bloom. Jiansu asked, the clay paste? Is it your real name? Hua Qiao nodded and said, it's his real name, but in fact this person is of ordinary background. His ancestors were foreigners who migrated from other counties to Xianxia County. The martial arts hall that had been opened for a few years will soon be out of business, and he may save some money. Only some family background can let the ointment enter the Taoist temple. Yu said with a smile, the surnames are rare. Jiansu frowned slightly, and the more she listened, the more she felt that something was wrong. No matter how small the spiritual realm view is, It is still an orthodox Taoist temple recorded by the imperial court and funded by the local government. If you want to become a resident Taoist of this type of Taoist temple, it seems that you can't just spend a few dollars. Come in. Yu couldn't help laughing. It's not difficult to understand. Yinchuan County is not a big county and Xianxia County is the poorest one. The place is remote and it is estimated that Taoist temples are too poor. Similar Taoist situations are not uncommon. It's just that the junior sister came from a wealthy family in a country and cultivated since childhood. Of course, she doesn't know much about this kind of local customs. Let's just say that the Taoist prefectures and counties within a country have their own scriptures that are difficult to read. Some counties are so rich, some are so poor that they can't open the pot. Many prefectures and counties that seem to have a vast territory may pay taxes every year, which may be far less than that of a county in other places. Jiansu asked, "Did Hong Guanzhu write in the official document, did he teach them one or two kinds of entry-level Xinjia Daoyin?" Fancy nodded and said, "Yes, but the effect is not good. Maybe it is a little bit related to the Taoist official, only the horse is heavy. After all, how is it so easy to become a Taoist official without the foundation of Taoism? If you want to obtain the status of a second-class Taoist official by virtue of the imperial examination, it will be more difficult to obtain a turbid Taoist ultimatum, and the requirements for literary talent are even greater." Jiansu sighed. Since Lord Hongguan has not taken any of them away from the spiritual realm after his resignation, it can explain the problem very well. Whether it is a Taoist embryo, whether it has the qualifications for cultivation, whether the root is good or bad, the Taoist temples in the world and the various wealthy clans, there are many secret methods of investigation. Jane Su asked again, "What are the temperaments of these teenagers?" Hua Qiao hesitated for a moment and said, "Lazy. They are all tired and lazy. They do their daily homework and Taoist temple affairs. They can hide whenever they can and none of them are diligent. Miss, they are unreliable. It's okay. I will be responsible for these daily cleaning affairs in the future, and let them do it, but I am not at ease." Yu said with a smile, "After all, it is a land of fish and rice. There are still a lot of scholars who cultivate and read their families. There are some literary works, but they are scattered and not gathered." Yu said again in his heart, "Hong Miao and Tan Tao, who came to the Taoist temple later, are quite old-fashioned in doing things, especially after Tan Tao's investigation of feng shui. There must be no problem in Xianxia County, only the vicinity of Taoist temple or the stable." Su Qing grinned and said, "I heard that Tan Tao entered the cave realm at the age of 30. He is far worse than our young lady and he is not a genius." Yu shook his head. "Tan's family has a profound background and she is a well-deserved noble family. Tan Tao is the hand-picked heir of the patriarch. She will definitely not be as simple as the bright side and she can't just look at the realm." Yu clearly remembered that when the owner of the Tan clan was a guest of the Golden Coffin School, he was the least interested in welcoming the patriarch who was sent to him. He even personally greeted a Jindandi who was a junior based on his age at the mountain gate. Furthermore, Tanjia is most famous for having a private altar. This is extremely rare in the entire Ruzhou with its vast territory. After all, in Ruzhou, there are no more than 20 altars of various veins that have the qualifications for private caskets. Jiansu said, "Fancy, you will be in Xianxia County when you arrive and you will spend money to buy a house. I will find you when I have time." As the abbot of a Taoist temple, you can completely decide the whereabouts of the group of resident Taoists in the temple. Don't mention the abbot's identity, just say that the Taoist priest who is the 8 classics, and the resident Taoist who is not even a candidate Taoist, is like the difference between the officials in the yamen, and the difference between clouds and mud. But Jiansu felt that there was no need for a new official to take the 3 fires, and the Taoist temple should be kept as it was. She devotes herself to studying and cultivating Taoism there, and they continue to mess around, so don't bother. Hua Qiao became anxious when she heard the words, and she hurriedly persuaded her own lady, "Miss, without me by my side and without a caring person to serve, how can this work? Absolutely not possible. Besides, in the spiritual realm view, it is the lady. A woman, the young lady is still so good-looking. Those tired and lazy people in the Taoist temple are not very promising, but they are just the reckless age of the blood and energy. God knows what kind of deeds they will do if they are not clear. The young lady is a cultivator, of course. I'm not afraid of some of them being muddled, but daily life is inconvenient after all, bathing, going to the toilet, washing clothes to dry. Chai Yu immediately nodded in agreement and said, Hua Qiao is right. After all, there are differences between men and women. It's better to let Hua Qiao place in order to practice in the spiritual realm. View, just give some money. I believe the county government will not pursue such trivial matters. Although he was not at all worried that there would be competitors in the spirit realm. View, he just thought of the scene of those stunned youths staring at the bamboo poles to dry the women's clothes. No, when I get there, I have to let those young men from small places gain more insight and let them know what the difference between immortals and ordinary people is. Jiansu joked. You can't blame yourself. If you have the official status of Taoist official, I can take you to the post with you and you can talk about anything. In the end, it's better for you. You will feel sleepy as soon as you turn over a book in elementary school and others are reading. You should be washing books with saliva. If you are not too open-minded, how can you not even get a Taoist ultimatum and you are still a candidate Taoist? If you are willing to put half of your mind on planting flowers and practicing martial arts, put it on endorsement above, you have already passed the exam. Hong Miao, the previous master of the spiritual realm, belongs to this category. In fact, the realm is already enough, but he cannot pass the final assessment, and he has never been able to obtain the official ultimatum issued by the imperial court. Hua Qiao whispered, It really doesn't work. I'll find an altar to buy a private altar. Don't worry, miss, I've saved some money and I can pay for it myself. Jiansu glared at him and said, They are all candidates for Daoist officials, and there is only one assessment of the Beijing Daoyuan Academy. How can it fall short? Can you pursue it a little bit? It was agreed in advance that when you arrive in Xianxia County, you will continue to endorse me honestly. Don't be lazy. I will check your schoolwork every month. If you fail twice, you will go back to the capital obediently, including your great-grandfather. It's useless for anyone to intercede for you. A certain surnamed Fa altar is used to teach private ceremonies and issue ultimatums. In the Qingming world, it belongs to the side door and left way, but this is actually very common in the 14 states of the world. In addition, many monks and Dao officials on the mountain in history have established their own portals, built altars, passed down the line of law, and the incense has continued to this day. Tan Ta's birthplace, the County Wang Tan family in Xinmi County, is here and has a private altar. Therefore, there is a saying in the Qingming world that can be taken seriously or not. I would rather provoke a sect's direct descendant than go to a certain altar. Just because there are no exceptions, the ancestors who have private altars must be richer, and they are definitely not ordinary rich. At least the Taoist priests in the Jade Pure realm started. Some maverick monks, when they reached the realm of earth immortals or even the upper 5 realms, were still just private Taoist priests. Although the ultimatum given by various altars will definitely not be recognized by Yujing, but Yujing deliberately or unintentionally makes a side of this net, that is to say, these endless private Taoist priests, because of their unjustified names, cannot be accepted. As a Qinglu official in the imperial court of various countries, he cannot hold any position in various official Taoist temples, but he goes out and calls himself a Taoist priest and there is no problem. In some dynasties that strictly forbid private purse, and even regarded all altars as a crime, these unrighteous side door officials can only make a detour. In history, the largest private altar is a rice thief from the Yanzhou lineage. But this matter has become a taboo topic for all Taoist officials in the Qingming world. Pretty grimacing. I had known that she would not talk about private matters. The bells and whistles stopped talking. Chai Yu flipped through the large and small matters on the booklet and it was orderly. Regardless of Su Cheng's appearance, rough, she was actually very careful. The reason why she has been dressed so brightly recently is something she can't do, because in the downtown area, passers-by who are often asked for directions or accosted will say, "This strong man." Hua Qiao complained, "Miss, the incense of the Lingjing Temple in Xianxia County means that there is no incense. Poverty is really poor. If it hadn't been repaired again in the past 2 years, we would have to drink the northwest wind this time, literally." A goose feather snow collapsed several houses, and it was Hong Miao who asked his grandfather to tell his grandmother for a few donations from the local gentry. He only said that the Taoist temple next door to Xianxia County, how could it be like this? We are stretched thin, and the Lingguan Hall and the Taoist Lecture Hall, which cover several acres of land, were only expanded last year. Generally speaking, Taoist temples will have temple property, and there will also be incense donations for lectures and fasting rituals. If there are more good men and women, Taoist temples will not be short of money at all. The abbots of some Taoist temples are somewhat famous and can also serve as priests. Taoist temples are equivalent to having their own French origin. But in Xianxia County's spiritual realm view, you don't have anything you want and you don't have anything you want. If you put aside the repairs that Hong Miao had done since a good person rebuilt it in the early years, it seems that no one has added a tile to the spiritual realm view for 200 or 300 years. Jiansu couldn't help laughing and said with a smile, "From another point of view, this remote Taoist temple called Spirit Realm was really solid at the beginning of its construction. Surely the civil craftsmen at that time did not cut corners?" Chayu was drinking wine worthy of being a junior sister and her heart was really big. Jiansu said, "It's not very good. You don't have to send it to us, it's clean." She left Beijing this time to hide from Jingjing. Otherwise, based on her family background and cultivation qualifications, she would go to those imperial Taoist temples that enshrine the emperor and the empress dowager to transcribe the Taoist scriptures. It is still a little difficult, but it is said that Jiansu's great-grandfather is willing to help in the operation of the Ministry of Personnel, plus the icing on the cake of the Golden Coffin School of the division. Let Jiansu go to a certain large house, the imperial court, to build a Taoist temple and seek a job. There is still no threshold for leisure and beautiful jobs that do not seek real power. Chayu remembered something. For some reason, it seems that the large-scale Taoist temples in various countries are now expanding the Lingguan Hall at the government level, and they are in full swing. The snow has stopped. Jiansu said, "Then continue on the road and try to find an inn in Zhou Xian, which is next to Xianxia County, before dusk, and get up early tomorrow, go to the Taoist temple in Zhou Xian County, and then we will rush to Lingjingwen." On the central axis of each Taoist temple the buildings are similar. After the mountain gate it is the Lingguan Hall. There is a slight difference. The former is in the Patriarch's Hall, and the portrait of the head teacher is often changed to the original surname of the patriarch who founded his own Taoist temple. However, the side halls on the east and west sides and the Taoist temples of various countries are different from each other. They often worship different Taoist gods: Xianzhen, Wenchang Hall, Yaowang Hall, Leibu Tianguan, Dragon King Hall, Marriage Temple, Wenwu Temple, etc. And foot. Chayu took out a few bags. "Junior sister, take them all, you will need them later." Among them, the noodles were asked by me and a female warrior from Yashan. She once passed by our division gate and it was me. She met by chance, and according to Yashan's seniority, her master is that Mrs. Qi. A bag of gold leaves, a bag of broken silver, and a well-crafted noodle. Before this trip, junior sister had never touched anything yellow or white in her life. Jiansu smiled and said, "I'll accept the gold and silver. As for this face, I'm not a martial artist. Am I so shameless?" Chayu smiled and said, "It can always save a lot of unnecessary trouble." Hua Qiao exclaimed, "Mrs. Qi Zhijing Wu Fu. She is our second disciple of Master Lin." The entire Ruzhou, whether it is a Taoist priest or a warrior, is proud of having a Lin Shi in his own family. This powerful maid of Kongwu, she always did this, she always dozed off when she heard the anecdotes of various gods, but when she talked about the martial arts masters in Ruzhou she was full of energy. Jiansu exited the dilapidated gymnasium, turned around and made a bow. After going down the mountain and entering the official road, the three cavalry galloped all the way to Su County, where they found an inn to settle down. The county government of Xianxia County has received an official document from Yingchuan County that the new Taoist priest, the abbot of Lingjingwen, will be here today. A county magistrate, the magistrate must be a Taoist, but Han magistrate has always had a mediocre relationship with Lingjingwen, and almost never communicated. The main reason is that Hong Miao, the former master of the sanctuary, is an alternate Taoist official. He has been in charge of the spiritual realm temple for so many years, but he has never visited the county government office. "Come to the door. Does this official have to go to the spiritual realm to find you?" There is no such rule. Because I heard that the abbot of this Taoist temple, Jiansu, is a son of a big clan from a high gate in the capital. He is very young. Generally, such Taoist officials come to the place to be gilded, and they will move to other places after a few years. The local officials know it well, and there is no need to make the relationship between the two parties too stiff. So this time the Xianxia County government gave Lingjingwen a little face, and let the county magistrate and the county lieutenant go out at the same time. All of them were recorded by the Ministry of Officials, and they had to be candidates of Taoist origin. If those large counties, ordinary Taoist officials, don't have enough family background, don't even think of becoming a county magistrate or county lieutenant. Early in the morning, 2 distinguished guests came to the spiritual realm temple. If I remember correctly, they may have set foot on the Daoist temple for the first time. The snow is not cold and the snow is cold. Yesterday was a good snowstorm. Today the teenagers in the Daoist temple are frozen like quails, their heads are drooping, their sleeves are stomped and their feet are stomping. After all, there were 2 high-ranking officials in the county government present, so it was not easy for the teenagers to openly bring out the charcoal cage to keep warm. Lin Xian felt that the opportunity was rare, so he leaned forward and stood at the door of the living room. He bravely called out to Uncle Huang, who was sitting by the brazier in the house. At this time Huang Xianwei was stunned. Where are the relatives? Instead it was the county chief who stroked his beard and smiled. It's the son of shopkeeper Lin. Yes, he's a resident Taoist priest in our local area. If you continue to work hard, study hard here and strive for a candidate Taoist priest, you will be considered a glorious lintel. Already. Lin Xian's face flushed red and his expression was very excited. Unexpectedly the county prime minister recognized himself. He was very sensible and did not dare to disturb the county prime minister's rest. The boy just felt warm all over his body. Seeing that Lin Yuan could even chat with the county magistrate, Ma Zhong and Tu Jia were both envious, and Tu Jia rushed to Lin Yuan's side and asked this question in a low voice. Lin Xian asked, "Where's that guy Chen Song?" Ma Zhong didn't reply angrily. He was very thief. He was a ghost. The 2 officials were drinking tea here, but unfortunately they were on official business and could not drink. As a result, when it was noon, I still couldn't wait for the figure of the new spectator, so I was a little murmured, "But don't go straight to the hilltop of the county government office?" No, if that's the case, both of them are close confidants of the Han County magistrate. There must be a subordinate official who came here to inform them, that is, they are still on their way to the Taoist temple. The concept of spiritual realm is too small, and Chong Geng, the guest in charge of dealing with people and things, also has many errands such as cooking and cooking. Since it was time to eat, the old man made a lunch and added a few dishes. The 2 officials and masters I just dealt with it a few casually, and then continued to move to the living room to wait for the new Guanju, who was said to have an excellent background. The ability to rely on a good family background alone is not enough. From early in the morning until it was almost dark and I couldn't wait for the figure of the new spectator, no matter how good my patience was, it would be exhausted. Dian Kuchong Geng boiled water again and again and changed the tea leaves again and again. The 2 county magistrates continued to drink like this. With the Taoist family they could really only drink water. Huang Xianwei had a dark face, stretched out his hand to use iron pliers to stir the charcoal fire and said softly, "This is too hot, Brother Qin, what do you say? People in the capital are amazing, they don't say anything about the rules." The old man said indifferently, "Wait for another half an hour, it won't be timed, well leave when it's time and we really won't serve you. Don't go to our county office if you have the ability." In the evening, Lu Fang and the guest Chong Geng stood in the corridor outside the living room and gently pulled the house. Lu Fang said that Yang Mozi's family had just killed a pig. "Let's go drink 2 cups. Chong Geng rubbed his hands and nodded, repeatedly saying that it is good to be brave and it is good to be brave. Turning his head and glancing at the extremely ugly faces of the 2 officials in the house, Lu Fang shook his head gently and said in a low voice, "It's still the same, life is hard. Hong Guanju is not good at managing relationships, but Ling Jingwen and the county government have maintained their politeness on the surface. How will you get along in the future?" Chong Bo smiled and said, "It's a pity that the county magistrate Han didn't come today." Lu Fang sighed heavily, "Let's just wait for the shoes to be put on after the Taoist temple. The new temple masters may not be afraid of this, but it's just that we, the resident Taoists who do not depend on both sides, suffer. The relationship between a Taoist temple and the local government is more of the former relying on the latter, and some poor Taoist temples that rely on the incense of the people to maintain their daily lives. Can give or not, give more and give less, anyway it is a doorway, it depends on the relationship between the Taoist temple and the local government. Not coincidentally, the spiritual realm view is on this list. Ma Wuye, grass is not fat, and the concept of spiritual realm is in Hong Miao's hands. It is the idea given by the aide Chong Geng that allows a Taoist temple to issue 2 Taoist robes for young people to wear in winter and summer every year. With Taoist incense money, It is only said that the last time various parties raised money to repair the Taoist temple, it was Changbo who helped to go out and contact. It is estimated that this is why Hong Miao has a honest duty, in his comments on the resident Daoist, regarding the venerable Chong Gung. In the words of that boy Chen Tsung, if a pilgrim is willing to throw 2 copper coins into the merit box, it is the sound of thunder. In the eyes of Miaozhu Lu Fong Chen Tsung, a child who is lazy or a little bit lazy, is smart and energetic and usually speaks a little interestingly, which can relieve boredom. Looking at the honest young man, in fact Yenner is bad and full of ideas. This doesn't seem to have persuaded Lord Hongguan to come, saying that relying on others is worse than relying on yourself. We Taoist incense is not prosperous. In the twilight, the top of the hill where the spiritual realm view is located is an inconspicuous hill, but the old locust trees on both sides of the road still look the same. The 3 turned over and dismounted together at the foot of the mountain. Jane Su led the horse away, raised her head and smiled. The scenery of the Taoist temple is much better than I imagined. Hua Qiao said helplessly, "Miss is too good to talk." Chai Yu squatted down, stretched out his hand to wipe off the thick snow on the road, then grabbed a handful of dirt, twisted his fingers, sniffed and nodded. The soil and water here are okay. Hua Qiao is not surprised by this. The young lad's senior brother Yu is actually very close to the young lady, but the young lady doesn't seem to have any thoughts about this senior brother. At the Taoist temple, the 2 county magistrates were actually about to return home, and they were full of anger. As a result, they went out and saw 3 foreigners walking towards them. Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up. Just based on the positions of the 3, he could guess that his new watcher was the young and beautiful elder sister in the middle. Is she the new watcher of our spiritual worldview? The teenager only feels that there is hope in life. In the future he will get along with such a beautiful woman day and night every day, and he must pay attention to schoolwork sooner or later. Tu Gao asked curiously, "Which one is the spectator?" Ma Zhong stared blankly at the fairy who seemed to be walking out of the New Year's picture. Chen Tsung quickly glanced at their clothes. These 3 horses are so impressive they can't be seen in the county town. Jian Su handed the reins of the horse to the maid next to her, and made a stern showdown with everyone. Jian Su, the new abbot of Lingjingguan, the Taoist priest, I have seen all the fellow Taoists. Chai Yu wanted to introduce himself, but after thinking about it he gave up. Chai Yu, a disciple of the 7th generation of the Golden Coffin sect, and as the evangelist of the Patriarch's Hall, was actually quite deterrent when he arrived at the local prefectures of his own country. The maid was fancy, deliberately put on a fierce face and glanced at the young man. Fortunately, they were all laymen with turbid breathing, and it was estimated that they were thirsty and not timid. Lingjingwen is not the kind of temple that has been passed down from generation to generation. It can open its doors to entertain people from all walks of life. Even if it is so poor, how can there be friends from other places who come here to harass, hungry and staring every day? Chai Yu intends to stay here for a while anyway, under the guise of traveling down the mountain so that he can accompany his sister on a landscape journey. The guest Chong Gung hurriedly returned a good-looking Jisho, and pulled a temple blessing around him. The guest Chong Gung and the temple blessing Lu Fong welcomed Jian Guanju. These 2 masters are counties in our Changxi County. Sir Qin, County Magistrate Sir Huang. The 2 adults have been at our Taoist temple since 1900 hours to wait for the spectator. We can't wait any longer. Seeing that it was getting late, the County Magistrate of Qin made an appointment with the County Magistrate Huang. Waiting outside, the Taoist temple is not big and it is dark today. If there are no words here on the mountain, it is estimated that Lord Jianguan will have to find it hard. Seeing the slim young woman's crown in front of her, the anger in the hearts of the 2 officials disappeared in an instant. As for the decent remarks of the guest Chong Gung, they were also pleasant to the ears. A small spiritual worldview, a talented person. I will communicate often in the future and have tea and talk with the master Jianguan. Chong Gung's cooking skills are not bad, so when he turned around he asked the yamen to send some seasonal vegetables to Taoist temple. Distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors, and the incense of spiritual realm view, can't our county government help? Jian Su apologetically smiled and said, Jian Su has no Dao number yet. I have met Qin County Chancellor and Huang Xianwei. I'm sorry to keep the 2 adults waiting for a long time and am afraid. This is an official document, please take a look. She took out the official document from her sleeve and handed it to the 2 county officials. Qin Xianxing took the official document. The sky was dark. The old man squinted and glanced at it. He nodded and said, "It's correct. I'm the county magistrate of Xianxia, and I would like to congratulate Jian Guanzhu on his appointment." In the official document, it was clearly stated that one day he must arrive at Lingjingwen to take office. But Jiansu did not expect that the county government would let two officials come to Lingjingwen to meet him, and he never thought that they would be here early in the morning. Wait. She thought for a while and smiled. It stands to reason that when I first arrived, I should take the initiative to visit you at the county government office. Jane Su reminded in her heart. Fancy, let's see how I will chat with them next. If you need it, you can ride a horse to the county seat and find a bigger restaurant later. Yu did it on purpose. In the final analysis, she still hoped that the younger sister could return to the teacher's door to practice. She really wanted to practice Taoism in the red dust, so she chose a Taoist view close to the teacher's door. The Golden Coffin sect is in the country and belongs to the top 3 avenues, but in recent years, it has been crowded out by the joint efforts of the 2 front sections. Zhou Daoguan may have heard of a Golden Coffin sect in Nanshan State, but it is estimated that he can't even remember the name and Dao number of the leader. The sect, right? The other 2 immortal gates, in a strict sense, do not belong to the local dojos of Nanshan Kingdom. Just because there are vassal hilltops outside Zhou Xian, and the mountains and rivers border Nanshan Kingdom, they are regarded as guests by His Majesty the Emperor. The head of the Golden Coffin sect was not even able to become a real protector of the country. It's not that the Nanshan Kingdom's court is unwilling to support the Golden Coffin sect, but it's really not appropriate to have a bad relationship with those 2 behemoths who are on the side of the couch in the same country. Junior sister never paid attention to these inside stories, and even if she heard about it she would just ignore it. But Yu, as a redisciple of the contemporary master of the Golden Coffin School, was highly valued and loved by his master. As soon as he entered the Longmen realm, he intended to let Yu be placed as a servant in the Nanshan State Rights Department and hone in the officialdom for a few years. When there is a sign of forming an elixir, he immediately returns to the mountain gate to retreat. As long as the elixir is formed, while the opening ceremony is held, Yu can take charge of the Ministry of Industry of a country. The 2 officials still declined Jian Guanzhu's dinner invitation, saying that they still needed to return to the county government immediately to inform the county magistrate of the matter, and some procedures needed to go through each room of the county government. Jiansu sent them all the way to the foot of the mountain. The Taoist temple is really simple and there is no mountain gate or archway. There are no stables in the Taoist temple. Fortunately, the temple wished Lu Feng that there was a place to take care of the horses in his village at the foot of the mountain. Hearing that the Guanzhu had already eaten dinner, the venerable Chongbua secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The lunch at noon had eaten up a lot of the Taoist family. I didn't use my chopsticks much, so it's cheap for those who just waited for the officials to leave the restaurant and started to devour them. Don't look at the temple Zhu Lu Feng, who is old and eats less. When he left the table he burped and went to the living room. On the way I walked slowly, stretched out my hand and pulled out the shredded meat from the gap between my teeth. Today's meal is not far from the new year. Chongbo led the new Guanzhu to a room, worried that she would have grudges in her heart, so he specifically emphasized that the quilts, wash basins and other objects in the room were newly bought by the Taoist temple from the county seat. Jane Su nodded with a smile and thanked the well-rounded old man. She had a good impression of this guest indeed. Being honest, she was actually very observant, but she didn't give off that slick feeling. When the old man arrived in the house he always stood by the door. When Jiansu sat on an official hat chair, the old man said goodbye and did not forget to gently close the door. Jiansu stretched her waist. Compared with the family in the capital in the Sherman dojo, everything she saw and heard here was new. There was a legendary fairy in the nascent soul realm from her ancestors, and her great-grandfather, the current owner of the house, was a golden elixir, but at this point, in the words of the great-grandfather himself, it was already exhausted. At the point where the energy and oil are exhausted, let alone the nascent soul realm, it is the second floor of the 3 floors of the golden core realm. Don't even think about it in this life. Therefore the outside world praised him as a young golden pill, but the old man said that he was a veritable old golden pill. In any case, becoming a Jindan Earth Immortal, the great-grandfather of Jiansu, still belongs to the family's well-deserved ancestor of Zidi. Although there is a nascent soul in the ancestor, the Jian family is still not a family of Zhongming Ding food that has been attached to the hairpin for generations. just because that patriarch the process of enlightenment was covered by clouds and mist, and seemed to be a little unspeakable so that there was no record in the family genealogy and biographies, and in the Nanshan kingdom whether it was in the middle 5 realms, forming a pill or even becoming a yuaning in the realm. I haven't really put my mind on the open branches and leaves of the establishment of the mountain or the officialdom of the imperial court. I just closed the door to practice, and I didn't accept many disciples, so when the ancestors quietly died, there was no such thing as the Jian family, which formed a climate quickly declined all the way until Jian's great-grandfather was a genius. And with the ancestral preaching book that no one could understand, he practiced smoothly and succeeded in forming elixir. It was only when the Jian family began to revive the family tradition. Jian's grandfather and 2 uncles were successively admitted to Taoist officials. The Jian family was thus able to gain a firm foothold and a place in the Nanshan kingdom's court. However, when it came to Jian's father's generation, they began to fail. There was no one in the house who had the qualifications to practice, and no one was admitted to the Taoist official. It wasn't until Jiansu was introduced that this predicament was changed, and the family could be said to be proud again. But no matter men and women, children of aristocratic families, when they get old, they can't get around the matter of marriage. The Jian family has always regarded themselves as the first of a scholarly family, and simple parents are really unwilling to fall into the reputation of clinging to the powerful, but it is reasonable to marry. After all, it is impossible. Avoid plus Jian's cultivating qualifications are good enough. Jian's parents are not in a hurry, but those fathers and grandparents in the family ancestral hall have some thoughts in this regard, and want to help her find a good family, except for a few Jingqing Zhenyan, who is already an official Taoist official, and Jiansu's fellow senior brother Chai Yu in the Golden Coffin sect. Aren't they a good match right now? Therefore, when Jiansu took the initiative to request to go out of town, and finally selected the spiritual realm concept of Nanchun County, Tongxi County, as the abbot Taoist priest, senior brother Chai Yu followed in an open and fair manner. In fact, at such a young age, Jiansu can serve as the abbot of a government-run Taoist temple. Regardless of how shabby the spiritual realm view is, it is still not enough to rely on the face of the Jain family. In fact, the number of abbots in any government-run or government-run Taoist temple in Nanshan Kingdom is a contest between the Jin and the 2 sections. Jiansu is only 19 years old now, and before she is 20 years old she is already in the Dongfu realm and successfully entered the middle 5 realm, which is no different from the carp leaping over the first dragon gate. The key is that Jiansu is talented and intelligent. She has read the family's collection of books since she was a child. She often had unique opinions when she was young. Therefore, when she was 14 years old, she was admitted to the Taoist official who passed the examination in the capital of Nanshan Kingdom, and her ranking was extremely high. Back then, this incident was quite a sensation in the capital. For example, among ordinary masters, it is equivalent to someone who passed the imperial examination at the age of 14 and was ranked in the top 3. It's a pity that Jiansu's practice is still a bit slow, and it is still a little bit short of the real genius Tao seed on the mountain. Otherwise, the number of people who come to the Jian family to ask for marriage will only be more, and it is estimated that the threshold has already been crossed. There is an earth immortal in the family which is so good. Jiansu stood up and hung a scroll on the wall. The portrait was of a middle-aged Taoist priest wearing a travel crown, sitting cross-legged on a futon. Inscribed on the painting is a poem written by Cinnabar, with 8 characters at the end, meaning similar to the message, "Leave the country, sit and forget and cultivate the Tao honestly." The signature is Qingxiao, real person. This is the Taoist name of the Yuan Ying patriarch of the Jiansu family. What a beautiful meaning of this name. However, Jiansu has checked the archives of the Ministry of Rights of the country, and there has never been such a Taoist official in the history of Nanshan Kingdom. Today, the Taoist official who owns this Taoist name, Jiansu, has heard the name for a long time and can be called thunderous. Just because the other party is a celestial priest of the Hongnong Yang clan in Yuzhou. There was a sound of pushing the door behind her, and Jiansu retracted her gaze. It was Hua Qiao who had returned to the Taoist temple. This burly maidservant was skilled in her movements. She put the pen, ink, paper, inkstone, water in the pen holder, and bamboo yellow arms on the lamp to make offerings to the study room, one by one. Take it out and put it on the table. Dozens of Taoist classics were taken out from the bookcases and bamboo crates. Because there were no bookcases in the house for the time being, they were all placed on the table, as well as a complete set of porcelain tea sets. as well as some precious letterheads secretly made on the mountain. They are stunners in paper and ordinary rich people can't afford them. A set of pastel flowers and 9 sets of plates, used to display melon and fruit desserts. Thanks to the small room, this desk by the window is quite large. The maid even took out the hammer nails that had been prepared for a long time, jingling. It turned out that she had to choose the hanging position of the vase on the wall. Flowers could be arranged in the porcelain vase. The wall vase of the half-moon vase was designed to hang on the wall. Don't look at how tall and majestic she is, in fact she is ingenious. She only talks about the sachets she knitted by herself, which is the favorite of the women of the Jian family. There is an ancient ink stone on the table which is very close to the celadone wall vase. The suddenly rich and extravagant family and the scholarly family of Gingdu and heirlooms always have their own decorative styles. Wuxia took a few steps back, glanced at the wall vase, then leaned closer to the wall, supported the vase and muttered, "Miss, I will go to the county town tomorrow to help you buy some winter and summer bedding mosquito nets, and also this bed is too small. Why don't I hire a skilled carpenter to make a bed with money? I will abide by the agreement not to show the realm of martial arts and family techniques here. The big deal is to hire a car to the foot of the mountain. I deliberately choose a twilight to come here and I will carry it myself anyway, just a few steps of the mountain road over the wall, to ensure that the ghost is not aware of it. No, it's not a trip to the spring and autumn period. The grandfather has a mantra: Taoist priests are not poor and who are poor." Jiansu smiled and shook her head. "Besides, with such a big bed, you can move it up the mountain. How can you move it into the house?" Looking at the decorations on the table, Jiansu laughed at herself. "It's not so poor, it's almost as good as hiding and enjoying the happiness." Hua Qiao glanced under the desk and said in a heartfelt voice, "Hong Miao said that there is a family talisman of Tan Tao secretly pasted on the bottom of the desk, which can last for several months." Miss Jane Su said in her heart, "Be careful sailing the 10,000-year ship, just keep this talisman." She sighed softly. There was no officialdom outside the mountain. This kind of favor is owed. Jiansu couldn't help but appreciate it. Fancy nodded, a little depressed. "Miss, I looked at Lin Xian's young men and my eyes were not right. When I looked at Miss, my eyes seemed to have charcoal fire." Jiansu smiled and said, "You know again?" Hua Qiao suddenly remembered a face. "Especially pay attention to the young man named Chen Kong. He looks quite Zhou Xian, his eyes are thief and he hides a lot of thoughts." Jiansu joked, "Is it possible that you have bad intentions?" Fancy shook her head and said, "That's not true. It can be seen that he is the only one who is not so reincarnated as a lecher, and he pays more attention to the lattice clothes." Jane smiled. Pretty and sternly said, "Miss, people's hearts are unpredictable. The intention to harm others is indispensable, and the intention to guard against others is indispensable. Since there are people who want to see beauty, there must be people who want to see money." Jiansu smiled casually and said, "Oh? That boy is still a money fan? So why don't you talk to me?" Hua Qiao rolled her eyes and said, "Look at his thin arms and thin legs, and he is shivering from the cold. When I pass by him in the future, I am afraid that a gust of wind will blow him with my quick steps." Jiansu held back her smile. "Then take it easy. Hua Qiao is a martial arts prodigy with amazing natural physical strength, but the Jian family has neither a martial arts master to worship her, nor a suitable martial arts secret book for her to learn. Is a little guilty. It is always said that this child of fancy, it would be great if he could go to Yashan in the Qijin dynasty to try his luck since he was a child. Unfortunately, he did not enter our house until he was 10 years old. For a top sect like Xiaxan, I believe that she may have great achievements." There was only one chair in the house. Jiansu let Fancy sit. She sat on the edge of the bed, put her hands on the edge of the bed and asked with a smile, "Stop the ink, go to the county town to find an inn and then buy a house." The whole person seemed to be stuffed with chairs and asked tentatively, "Miss, are you really not allowed to live in the Taoist temple?" I asked. "The temple wishes Lu Fong to have a room and he doesn't live often. They'll pay him to rent it." Looking at the pitiful her, Jiansu felt a little soft-hearted, and without waiting for Jiansu to say anything, Hua Qiao laughed and said, "Miss, I have already negotiated the price with Lu Fong and I will take the house over there." Order. As expected of senior brother Chai, he really taught me a clever trick. Jiansu said helplessly, "Okay. They say they are masters and servants but they are actually sisters." Hua Qiao smiled brightly and said, "Miss, Let's talk for a while? Jane nodded. Huaqiao took out a book from the pile of books on the table. She didn't like to read books, but there was a treasure hidden in this Taoist book. Jiansu looked at the soft and flirtatious movements and couldn't help joking. Have you met your lover again? Is it like every 3 autumns if you don't see each other in one day? Fancy grinned. I'm not worthy of him, miss. I'm not worthy of my conscience either. Jiansu nodded and said, that's for sure. Huaqiao took out 2 pages from the book, which she carefully cut out from the 2 Xianxia newspapers. The Jian family is not one of the first-class wealthy portals in the capital, so every expensive Xianxia dibao will be carefully preserved. This is a 2-page dibao that I finally collected after asking the lady for help. Lover, of course, is a joke by his own lady just because there is the same pure martial artist on the dibao. But it is another world. His name is Xianxia. On a page of the D newspaper he wrote about how he broke through the border and retreated from the enemy in a place called Fuyazhou in the vast world. On the second page of the D newspaper, it was written that he won the battle between the blue and white of the Confucian temple in China. Win again. This also has something to do with the prosperity of Russia's martial arts. Gossip about this Xianxia will be spread on the mountain. In other states, it may only be heard of this person on the top of the mountain. However, such a person who is far in the horizon is really a figure far in the horizon for Huaqiao. From Huaqiao's point of view, Xianxia, who is a majestic world, is unattainable, and he is not much different from the city owner and landlord of the 12th floor of Baiyujing 5 city. It may be because of preconceived ideas she has a bad impression of another Xiaoxi's peers, to be precise, very bad. If you lose and lose again, how can you still have the face to entangle Xianxia endlessly? Huaqiao started talking again. Miss, can you imagine that Xianxia is only in his early 40s now, and he is already the master of the end of the martial arts? I take him as the second master Lin, isn't it too much? The Di Bao said that Xianxia has never lost anything so far, and he will definitely not lose to anyone in the future. Hearing this, Jiansu asked with a smile, didn't he have a master and there is no competition between them? Since there are competitions in teaching boxing to feed boxing, there must be winners and losers, right? Huaqiao's eyes widened, her face dazed. She shook her head and said dully, how do I know about the situation of their master and apprentice teaching boxing anyway? That world said that Xianxia never lost. Jiansu said with a smile, I heard that there is another person of the same age with the surname Chen. Although I lost a few games, but the most recent match made Xiaoxi's face swollen? Huaqiao said angrily, bah. This kind of person doesn't teach any martial arts at all, so is he worthy of being a martial arts master? Jiansu joked. If you saw that Qin Yingguan one day, would you dare to scold him face to face? Huaqiao suddenly lost her anger and said listlessly, of course. I don't dare. The surname Qin, in addition to being a young martial artist, is one of the 10 young people in the world. Qin Shi? It seems that he is still an official Qin Yingguan? Oh, it's bells and whistles flashy. Look at our Xianxia, isn't it just Xianxia? Are there nicknames and titles? Just the name of Xianxia is enough. Thinking of this, Huaqiao's mood improved. It was dark at night and there was nothing to do. Yu was carrying a money bag full of money from the 9 emperors selected from the treasury. Opening the knot of the bag, Yu opened his 5 fingers and 9 coins popped out from the inside. These are all kinds of treasures used as carving mother coins. They are all year names with excellent meaning, and behind each year number is a meaning, a period of peaceful years when the country was strong and the people were safe. Among them there is another bag hidden in the sleeve of Yes Taoist robe, which holds several coins carved from snow-white ivory, but there is no need to make such a move. There is this treasure in the family. In fact, Yes ancestral home is not Nanshan, but a vassal state bordering the Qijin dynasty. There is an official in the imperial court called Qian Fa Shirlang, who manages the coinage of Mingquan Bureau and Baoyuan Bureau. The Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Households all have them, and they are usually held concurrently by the right servants of the 2 departments. Occasionally there are also officers who serve as the head of the Qianfa Hall. Usually, it is a precursor to being promoted and reused by the imperial court. Occasionally there is a large government in the local area, and there is also a coinage bureau which is convenient for collecting materials and casting locally. Relatively speaking, Qian Fa Shirlang of the Ministry of Industry has more power, and the copper coins he casts can be used in one country or even several neighboring countries. Engraving the money sample is sent to the Ministry of Industry for appraisal. After this, the ancestral money is imitated and cast, and then the mother money is cast with the ancestral money. Even if it is mother money, the beauty of its appearance is by no means the currency of a country. As for the ancestral money, especially the copper coins carved from ivory, the Ministry of Industry and Industry of the Imperial Court will carefully record each one, have a serial number and transfer it to the Imperial Treasury, which will be kept tightly sealed and not leaked. And all of Cai Yuji owns these treasures, which is related to his ancestors serving as ministers and servants of the Ministry of Industry. In addition, there are several forbidden books in the family, which are secret and treasures, and absolutely dare not let outsiders know about them. For example, there is a Book of Rites. The official chapter is devoted to such taboo content as Tugue surveying the depth of the geodesic veins and how to build a royal city in the middle of the earth. Therefore, Cai Yes family has a deep family background, and almost all the Taoist officials of the family are born with a keen intuition for gold, iron and earth veins. Ma Zhong and Tu Jiao both found it interesting, but Cai Yi didn't stop them. The two rural teenagers watched from afar, constantly throwing money on the ground and picking up money again. Behind the small Taoist temple near the vegetable garden there is a dry well. Cai Yu had already put away the 9 mother coins and pulled out a talisman from his sleeve. The two teenagers were startled. The Taoist priest just blew it lightly, and the yellow paper talisman instantly burned as if holding a lantern. The lanterns illuminated the whole vegetable garden brightly. Cai Yu stood beside the wellhead, raised his arm and raised the talisman, and then looked down. It wasn't too deep, but there was some snow at the bottom of the well. 2 fingers twisted the talisman, chanted the incantation silently, and finally threw it to the bottom of the well. A talisman was driven into the snow at the bottom of the well as fast as an arrow. During this period the fire burst into flames, like a slender fire dragon hanging in the well. No difference. To be careful, Cai Yu waited until the talisman at the bottom of the well was completely burnt out, then walked around the well, took out a long golden rope from his sleeve, and then took out a pocket copper coin sword, which was no more than a foot long and hung on it. In the golden long rope he intends to fall into the well with his sword. If there is an evil spirit hiding in it, encountering this sword is tantamount to seeing a scorching sun in a tomb. I dare not say that with this copper coin sword, you can slay demons and eliminate evil on the spot, but it is certainly not difficult to force them out of the well. Cai Yu made up his mind that before leaving the Taoist temple he would give each of the teenagers a copper coin of relatively ordinary material and shape. But if they know the goods, they can find a Xianxia ferry port or a large county temple and sell it, which is also a considerable windfall. Tu Jia secretly glanced at Ma Zhong. Ma Zhong was a little absent-minded. Inside the Taoist drum tower, Qin Tsong was lying there watching the fire from the well in the vegetable garden. Both Changxi County Lingjing Temple and Naxi County belong to Taoist temples in small counties, so according to the ritual system, they are not qualified to hang such big bells and drums. In the late Stop the Great Tranquility, the Taoists of all generations who have lived in the spiritual realm since its establishment have only heard about it. Either someone is willing to travel long distances to those Taoist temples, and when they come back they can brag about it. Hong Miao, the previous master of the temple, once said that when the imperial decree built the giant temple, the bells in the morning and the drums in the evening are loud and distant, and can be heard dozens of miles away. A few old-fashioned teenagers are just like listening to heavenly books anyway. All the rest of the Taoist temples pay attention to the red tape. When it comes to the Spirit World Temple, every time a pig is killed, the pilgrim will go down to help drag the pig's tail, and then carry 2 pieces of meat back to the mountain to open a small Taoist temple. It's not going to happen. There's no time to live. Just when Cai Yu sacrificed the copper coin sword, the sound of the twilight drums sounded in the Taoist temple. Qin Tsong was taken aback, but he didn't even bother to turn around. It must have been Uncle Chong working here. Cai Yu was stunned for a moment, then smiled casually. After all, he was a Taoist official and he was a received Taoist priest who had just arrived. He had to pay attention to a rule and put the pocket copper sword in his sleeve. Looking at the dry well, Cai Yu turned around and made a bow at the drum tower. Originally, I was suspicious, and if it spread to the ears of my junior sister, I would probably be laughed at a few times. All night. The new official took office. The watcher was simple. He turned on the lamp and read several account books of Ling Jingguan. It didn't take much time to chat with his maid Wuxia for almost a night in the boudoir. Yu lived in a very simple guest room and he had no sleepiness. Except for the breathing of his homework at night, the next door was the place where the teenagers lived. Except for the snoring there was nothing. Unbearable. After finally waiting for the morning bell to ring, Yu opened the door of the house, only to see Chongbo, who was cleaning the courtyard, and began to beat the ice awls hanging over the eaves with his broom, breaking the ground. Seeing this, Yu felt helpless, so did he use a broom? You can use a bamboo pole to hit the ice awl. But Yu still didn't say anything. Instead he took the initiative to say hello to the old man. Chongbo hurriedly stopped what he was doing and called out to Immortal respectfully. Yu glanced at the main hall of the Taoist temple and asked tentatively, Chongdianka, can I enter the main hall to see? Uncle Chong was delighted when he heard it and said with a grin, don't talk about going to see it. If the Taoist priest sees something he likes he can move it away as long as I don't see it. The valuables in the Taoist temple are almost all there. In the main hall, there are all the items, all of which have been reported in detail with the county government. The officials and masters of the household and workshop will come here to check each year as a rule, and if there is any need for repairs the place that needs to be reported is a trivial matter of the officials and gentlemen. It has not been replaced for many years. It is better to lose it accidentally. Seems that it was the year before the year. The master of the workshop visited our Taoist temple in person. After reading it I said it was strange. Is your spiritual conception so firm? You are safe everywhere, and the clerk in the household listened to it and didn't seem to say a word. Obviously the other party is reminding the spiritual realm view. If you can repair or not you should pay attention to it. Don't be dumb. Children who can cry have milk to eat. As a result, then the county government workshop will have oil and water. As for the household you can also make a small profit. Even if the money is not much, you can invite your colleagues in this room to have a drink, eat meat and connect with each other. Isn't it a good thing? Yu choked for a moment. It's really out of sight. Isn't the local folk customs a bit simple? Yu was relieved after thinking about it again. This Chonggung used to be a genuine scholar. No wonder. It seems that it is very good for this old man to be the Taoist watcher. Maybe you can really help your junior sister and help with Taoist affairs? There is only one thing. Even if it is an outsider, Yu is still uncomfortable and unhappy. After hesitating for a while, Yu asks, Chongdianka, it seems that you are not particularly good at playing bells and drums at the door? Chongbo said embarrassedly, Hong Lao Guanju has taught him a few times fast and slow, and I am old so I can't remember it and I can't learn it. Yu was speechless for a moment. As for whether the old man can't learn or is it troublesome, God knows. Then Yu didn't even bother to ask, do you know what the content of Zhongwen is in cooperation with Qinzhong and Migu? Yu had to ask another simple question. Uncle Chong, there are Dao Nao, Lin and Lang here in the Taoist temple, right? Uncle Chong was at a loss. What did the Taoists say? There are now board and copper times, but I don't need them at ordinary times. Hong Lao Guanju is gone and now he is eating ashes in the utility room. Yu had no choice but to explain patiently. The Fa Zhong is named Lin on the left and Lang on the right. The body of the bell is often engraved with cloud patterns of spells. Generally speaking, the county Taoist temple should have it, but the material may be relatively ordinary. The old man snorted. The Daoist said directly that it's the kind of big bell with a long handle. Yes, why not? Hong Lao Guanju shook and chanted it was very nice. Every time a few teenagers can take the opportunity to fall asleep. Among them Ma Zhong and Tu Jiao are even more powerful. They have already developed a unique skill that can make them fall asleep with their eyes open. Yu rubbed his eyebrows and said nothing. This old regular guest, he was a scholar when he was young, but he definitely didn't study hard. Most likely he didn't even think about taking the Taoist examination at all. Is it self-awareness? Can't even think about it? Uncle Chong glanced at the Tongpu house. It was rare to open the door so early. Lin Xian looked very energetic. They were all carefully arranged, and Tu Jia specially changed into a new Taoist robe. As for Qin Song, his junior, he was still the same sleepy eyes, and when he rolled his eyes he saw that the courtyard had been cleaned, and walked towards him quickly, smiling as he was about to take the broom. Guanju Jiansu walked out of the door, glanced at the resident Taoist priest in his Taoist temple, nodded lightly, stepped into the main hall first and began to offer incense. Except for Yu and Wuxia, the others waited. As for Lu Fong, who wished to pray in the temple, he didn't go up the mountain. and he almost didn't offer those horses as his ancestors. Hearing the bell of the Taoist temple on the mountain, the old man was relieved to go to sleep, and he fell asleep. The king and Laozi didn't even want to wake up. He must sleep well today. Jane Su started her first morning class. Although she was facing only some teenagers, but fortunately, the contents of these coursework were all contents that she had been familiar with for a long time. In the past it was listening, but now it is just lecturing. In addition, before coming to Taoist temple she still did some lesson preparation, and once asked a family who belonged to the Taoist temple to worship, but Jiansu was still a little nervous at first. It's just that the group of teenagers still talked twice about whether they were listening to the class or watching the class, and the guest Chong Geng, who was sitting in the corner, had already started pecking at the rice, which made Jiansu quietly relieved. Is getting better. After all, she was admitted to the ultimatum at the age of 14, and coming here to give a lecture is actually similar to the teaching of a country's champion to Mengtong Murano. Chai Yu and Hua Qiao, who were standing at the door, were also relieved. At the end of the morning class it's a fasting meal. Chong Bo has already gone to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Officially run Taoist temples in various places, in addition to the rituals such as fasting, rituals, etc., must be vegetarian on the 15th day of the first year. In addition to not eating meat, there are also taboos of 5 meat and 4 sins. In addition, it depends on the rules established by each Taoist temple. They are all strictly vegetarian and absolutely do not eat meat or drink, and marriage is strictly prohibited. However, the Taoist temples built by ordinary officials are not included in this list, such as the spiritual realm concept. Furthermore, sometimes whether or not the Taoist temples at all levels directly under the jurisdiction of the imperial court of a country can eat meat or not depends on the personal preference of the emperor or the real person protecting the country. There was a large round table that could seat about 10 people. As a result, there were steamed buns, white porridge, a few plates of winter pickles, and a large jar of chopped peppers and garlic. The teenagers all held their breaths and only waited for the new Guanju to give an order, and then they could move their chopsticks. Jiansu said with a smile, "Chong Dienka, Taoism is very particular. Today is just 15. This garlic is among the 4 sins. Let's remove it." Chong Geng quickly apologized, rubbed his hands and took the jar of chopped peppers and garlic away. Chayu was a little helpless. Didn't Hong Miao never care and teach? The eyes of several teenagers followed the jar of chopped peppers and garlic. I just depend on it for dinner. Without this thing the food is already extremely bland. What else can I do? Fancy is a little curious. Is this thing really that delicious? If you don't rinse your mouth after eating when you talk to someone, isn't it all the smell of garlic? Phil. As for chatting at the dinner table, we can all be free. Jiansu smiled and took a sip of white porridge. She took the lead with her chopsticks and picked up a chopstick of winter pickles. She chewed it carefully. It tasted quite good. Because of the presence of Lord Jianguan, the teenagers were very polite. When Jiansu put down her chopsticks, several teenagers were still eating steamed buns and making porridge. Fancy can see the way, especially that Chin Tsong, who seems to be eating slowly. In fact, he really eats a lot. Hearing that Immortal Chai and the big ladies were going to the county to buy something, Lin Xian volunteered to help lead the way. It turned out that Lord Jianguan did not come down the mountain with them, and the young man disappeared all of a sudden. After leaving the Taoist temple, he began to feel sick. Jiansu began to wander around the Taoist temple. Outside the main hall, there were guest rooms, a fasting hall, a kitchen, and a storage room where farm implements and sundries were stacked. In fact, there were only a few houses. Tu Jiao and Ma Zhong were very attentive and led the Guanju door to door. Only Chin Tsong squatted under the eaves with his arms in his sleeves, basking in the warm sun, yawning lazily. Teenagers have always adhered to one purpose: to be lazy if they can be lazy. At the end of the day, except for a change of view to this tired and lazy boy, there seems to be no difference. Compared to the excitement of the other teenagers, Chin Tsong was curious about several things that he couldn't say. For example, will there be toilets and urinals in the house of the new patron? Usually people have 3 urgency. Jian Guanju also uses the public toilet in Taoist temple. And in the future, the personal clothes that Jian Guanju hangs in the courtyard hang on the bamboo poles and dangle with the wind. Will it damage the majesty of the Guanju? The young man thought about it and thought it was very possible that Lord Jianguan would let the black charcoal maid rent a house outside the Taoist temple, or a village or county town, so that he could solve many troubles at the same time. Just ask Chong Bo if he has any spare money, rent an empty house in Lu Fang's village and then resell it to Jian Guanzhu. He will only earn her a few dollars in a year. It's a pity, a penny stumped a hero and he lost such a fortune in vain. Dinner is still a veritable vegetarian meal. Fortunately, before Jian Guan picked up the chopsticks, he said with a smile that as long as it is not a fasting day on the 15th day of the first lunar month, he does not avoid meat and spicy food. Qin Song hesitated to speak, but was stared at by Uncle Chong, who seemed to be an unpredictable prophet. The young man finally held back, otherwise he would have almost blurted out a sentence. Jian Guanzhu, should we avoid food or not in Taoism? It's a matter of eating meat or not. There is no need to hold morning and evening classes except on Liuwu Day. In the evening classes of the Taoist temple every day, incense and candles are first burned, and then the so-called chanting scriptures. Among them, as the first step of the Taoist evening altar, the virtual rhyme is actually fixed. However, when the old master Hong was replaced by a young master, the rhythm was also like singing and reading. Lin Xian and the others listened with great energy. At least on the surface, Qin Song was still drowsy. The scriptures are also selected from the Taoist classics authorized by the imperial court. Every year, 100 years, the 10 directions, the inspiration, the clear and tranquil, the redress and the sin, the ascension to heaven and the way to get away from the lost. It seems that Daomen rituals are such old rules that are passed down day by day. When the evening class was over, Ma Zhong and the others found Immortal Chai outside the door and asked him where he came from, if there was that kind of fairy magic that soared through the clouds, as the book said, in the kind of magic that was higher than the sea of clouds. Do you practice Taoism in the mountains? Qin Song went to Chong Uncle's house. As soon as the twilight drum sounded, he had to go to sleep. Today is different from the past. After all, the spiritual realm has been changed to be the master of the house. In the past, the master of Hong Laoguan never cared about this and didn't sleep at night. Once the gate of the Taoist temple is closed, the back door will not be locked. Just slip out and stroll around. It's enough to make up for sleep during the morning class. Toilet bar. The old man continued to read the old book, which also had no title on the cover. Qin Song remembered that many years ago, whenever he wanted to read, Uncle Chong would hand over the book to him, and he would explain a few words when he was in a good mood. But it seems that since the beginning of the spring last year, it might be the end of the winter of the previous year? After that, he won't let him read this book. Chong Boss' reason is that your kid's memory is okay and it's not interesting to read it again. In fact, it's not just about this book. I remember when I was a child, Chong Bo still liked to talk a lot and he was willing to talk to him about everything, but the later he was, the less he liked to talk. This made the young man a little sad, as if he grew up day by day. Chong Bo was getting old day by day. Qin Song really remembers the content of the book. The first one seems to be about the rites and music of Taoism. What is the monarch who encourages the music? What changes the customs? The world is peaceful, the good and the good are happy. And they say that the bell is the head of the golden music. The immortal palace of the Brahma palace must be used to show the sincerity of the audience and the songs of ghosts and gods. For these, the teenagers are all ignorant. So-called knowing is just knowing. Qin Song is also not very interested. The only thing that thinks the interesting thing is that at the end of a certain subsection in the book, there is often a sentence like, "But Mosey is not right. But Mosey is not right." When I asked Chong Bo in the early years, I realized that Mosey was a person. The boy asked curiously, "Chonghua, does the old master who wrote this text have a grudge against that man named Mosey? So tit for tat that you have to write an article to scold the fight. And if you meet, you must not roll up your sleeves and fight?" When the young man spoke, Chong Bo stretched out his hand and twisted the wick, shook his head and said, "There is no hatred, on the contrary, they are still good friends." Qin Song wondered, "How do you know this?" The old man smiled and said, "It seems from other books." Qin Song said helplessly, "Uncle Chong, you only read the most miscellaneous books." The old man began to chew on words. "Most can't be talked about, it's relatively more." The young man smiled and said, "Okay, in the future I must engrave a seal on one side, and the inscription is Chonghua has seen it, or in more written language Chonghua has seen. How about it?" The old man said, "It's better to change the word look to the word read. When you are young you need to read. When you are old you can pick up books to read." The ancients said that reading 100 times is self-seeking, and it has deep meaning. In the past, people who wrote books were preaching, and people who read books took it seriously. The more you go on, the more accessible the books are, and the more truths they have, the more they are worthless. Qin Song didn't like to hear some of these, but just whispered a question that he cared most about. Will Lord Jianguan really drive us away? Changbo shook his head and said, no. Why? At first glance that Jian Guanzhu is a rich man from a big family. What's the point of this? Do rich people have to be kind-hearted? The old man smiled and shook his head. That's not the truth. What I mean is that Jian Guanzhu won't care about petty profits, and the children of the real wealthy family, their method of calculating gains and losses is different from those of us who are resident Daoists. To put it simply, she didn't like us and felt upset, so she threw us out of the Taoist temple. It's okay for the two of us to say that we were helpless and had nowhere to complain. In the end, making a mess of chickens and dogs will only delay her clean life. In this way, Lord Jianguan can save some money or arrange his own manpower in the Taoist temple, but for her, every inch of time is an inch. Jean, you can take it seriously, but she thinks it's a very real and most valuable truth, especially if she is being dealt with by the common people. She will be very troublesome and really want to make trouble again and again, and even go to the county government to file a lawsuit. By the way, Jian Guanzhu is a loss-making business that does not pay for the gains, so do you understand? Qin Song smiled brightly and said, when it comes to money, I understand. The old man smiled and said, virtue. Ding Kuchonghua, inside and outside the Taoist temple, is indeed a good-natured man who is easy to talk and has no temper, but if he is said to be kind and amiable, it is really only the young Qin Song who faces his younger generation. Qin Song was habitually lying on the table and said, Uncle Chong, what you say, the reason is such a reason, but you don't reach out and slap a smiling person, and you don't blame people for being polite. This principle is always universal. Is it right? Do we want it? Well, it means filial piety, meaning expressing. Uncle Chong snorted, I don't have that spare money. Qin Song raised his head and wiped the table back and forth with his chin. Giving gifts is really a skill. The old man smiled and said, I'm usually not very bright, but my brain is not enough now. Don't you like to carve seals? I touched some different stones in the river. How much is it? The boy's eyes lit up. He gave a thumbs up and said sincerely, Uncle Chong, it's okay. The old man smiled. Being so praised by the stinky boy makes me feel actually okay. It's better than being told by this kid, I can't beat Cui Yu, but I can't beat a mahjong. This kind of is bound to happen, the old man can guess. The young man thought about it and muttered in a low voice, what is written in the seal? I see that Immortal Chai seems to be a pair with our Guanzhu. Otherwise, I came to Yingchuan County from the capital and it's 1,000 miles away. Yes, you must not wear your off. But in case that Zhou Xian is unrequited, I don't want to flatter the horse's hoof. Writing about calling the wind and calling the rain, flying through the clouds and driving the fog? Isn't it too tacky? Otherwise, I will write about giving birth to a precious son early. After Jian Guanzhu, there will always be a Taoist companion, and a Taoist companion will always have a child. When the boy said this, he laughed to himself. The old man squinted at the young man and Qin Song rolled his eyes. I'm just joking, I think you're nervous. I said that whenever there is a big event, you're the only one who can tell the truth? Uncle Chong, it's really not me. This junior said your habit of being stricter than self-discipline must not be changed? The old man smiled and said, if I can take care of you, I should burn high incense. The young man clasped his fists in both hands and said with a hilarious smile, it's easy to talk and talk. Chong Bo reminded, have you thought about the seal? Qin Song began to talk to himself. Master Jian Guan is now our preacher. The book says that Digao is a teacher and a model, and the book also says that there is a regular advance and retreat, all rules, quiet and holy. The king of action, the book also says that the simplicity is unmatched in the world. Oh, it's simple, but it's not just adding meritorious decorations. Well, the name of Jian Guanzhu is not bad, quite good. Chong Bo said with a smile. It's good or bad to have such a content, but do you think that you are a resident Taoist and it is appropriate to give such a seal to the new abbot? Qin Song nodded. That's right, the meaning is too big. It's similar to the message sent by the elders of the family to the younger generation. It's really inappropriate. Straight, gentle and honest, simple and clean and beautiful, it's actually good, but it seems it's too slick and disrespectful. I'm afraid it would be appropriate to replace it with Immortal Chai to send it. Yes, there is not such a sentence in the book. The beginning of the work is simple and the end will be huge. This reminds me of horses. It was a romance novel that they didn't hide, and I saw that Wan Jun knocked out a fierce general from it. All the officials should take a good look at it, the red robe and red hair, the red horse riding alone, and the water on the waist to grind the slips. Stop. Uncle Chong felt a headache, bent his fingers and tapped the table lightly. Actually, it's simple, just engrave the word Jian. If the other party doesn't like it, you're not rude. The seal of the collection of the Lord sighed. Chen Song said helplessly, Uncle Chong, it's really simple, thanks to you if you can figure it out. The old man smiled and said, it's not easy to teach you to write the word Jian in ancient seal script. Look carefully. Before the sun is exposed to 3 poles, it is a double pole. Taoist priests should cherish their time. There is a hidden heart. Chen Song looked up. Chong Bo raised his finger and wrote a word in the air. The bottom door was low and sun high. Chen Song wondered, can it be done? Chong Bo said, it's up to you whether you can do it or not. Speaking of this, the old man laughed to himself and shook his head. Chen Song asked curiously what he was laughing at. Uncle Chong just shook his head, and the young man became more curious to ask the reason. Chong Bo said, do you think the phrase I can do my own thing is okay? This is the first time a teenager has heard this expression, which means to stay away from officialdom and walk in the countryside. It seems to be used on Jianguanzhou, is it not bad? From the capital to Chongxi County. Chong Bo held back his smile. I advise you not to send it. Let's change the content, just engrave the word Jian in that ancient seal. Otherwise you will really be swept out by the Lord of Jianguan. Chen Song asked, why? Chong Bo smiled and said, because the original meaning is the self-reporting of an abandoned woman in the countryside. Chen Song sat up straight and stared. Uncle Chong, just think, well, get out of bed together. The weather outside is freezing cold and it will really freeze people to death. I can say your body. Having said that, the young man lay down on the table again and continued, actually, Uncle Chang's body and bones are still quite good and he is healthy. I remember it very clearly. When I asked you about your age the year before, you said it was 62. When I asked you last year, it will be 61 this year, it must not be 60. The more you live, the younger you are. Very good. Huh. The old man smiled and nodded. I go wild. The seal, if there is a chance in the future, you can give it as a gift to Wen Haizhoumi, who went from Howren to wilderness. Uncle Chong, why don't you carve the seal? Worried about being ugly and showing timidity? Was it thrown into the trash can? Chen Song grinned. In fact, he was afraid of self-defeating and not beautiful. Chong Bo said, giving gifts is your sincerity. What's the matter if I catch a knife on my behalf? Sooner or later it'll show my fault. When he started to make sense again, the young man waved his hand. It's all right, I'll engrave. I'm not good at engraving. My handwriting is not bad. Compared with Chong Bo, the difference is at most within an inch. The old man laughed and scolded, stinky brat, doesn't even make drafts for bragging. Some so-called calligraphy masters and masters hide their characters. But Howren embroidered a tiger, but he is a well-deserved person to hide his words. In the Howren world, Cui Yu, who was once known to the world as the first disciple of Wenxing, was the most despised calligrapher. Therefore, among the hundreds of schools of thought, there should not be a place for calligraphers. A curse. Those painters on the mountain who are known as the masters of Danqing, or those who are awaiting edicts from various countries, feel that they are better than the other. But those chi practitioners who specialize in calligraphy are frustrated. So much so that Confucian scholars and literati with little knowledge in Middle-earth Shenzhou began to feel that being called a master of calligraphy was indeed an unpleasant or even abusive statement. Since the text is to convey the Tao, then the text is the carrier. How can you, Cui Yu, regard it as a small skill of carving insects? As a result, Cui Yu said directly, do you think you are a holy saint? For this reason there was also a lawsuit in the Confucian temple. Of course, the old scholar who was a Wenxing came forward to be responsible for the smashing. Instead of the nonsense student, I will make a mistake for you. But it is only said that as soon as the old scholar walked out of the Confucian temple and arrived at the Gongdalan, he patted the first disciple on the shoulder with all his strength. After many years, it was rumored that it was a discussion in the Confucian temple behind closed doors. The old scholar was really furious this time. He patted his chest and said, I never felt that my students were really wrong. It's because I'm Wenxing, yes. Not once. My students never say wrong, do wrong. The dignified sage in front of the Confucian temple masters and the school palace sacrificed wine, Sai, and a group of Academy Mountain leaders, swearing the 3 character classics. I dragged them and apologized and admitted their mistakes. It was because they were unlucky. I was so unprincipled in the stall, who couldn't write a good article after eating cold pork head. Whenever they make a mistake once, I, the gentleman, will let them apologize in person. At that time, a young man in a Confucian shirt with a host on his head sat silently on the steps. After the meeting, the old Zhou sat down beside him. The young man asked with a smile, "Did you lose the quarrel?" The old Xianxia shook his sleeves, turned his head and spat on the ground. As if he felt that something was wrong, he hurriedly stretched his neck and looked around. "That's the only thing that says it can't be done." After a moment of silence, the old Xianxia sighed. "In fact, the quarrel has never been won or lost, or it has always been lost." The young man nodded. The old scholar patted the first disciple's arm, stood up, walked away with a big laugh, went to Gongdalan and made a cup of wolfberry tea. "Chuiyu, is this wolfberry tea really as good as you said?" Why did Mr. find that Mr. Ziping's eyes were not quite right? Chuiyu said with a smile, "Anyway, that's what the medicine book says. I think Mr. Shiping is greedy, right?" The old scholar laughed and said that it is necessary and I can't drink wolfberry tea. "Where can students like you go?" Chen Tsong fed a few times and shook his palm. "Uncle Chong, what are you thinking?" Chong Bo smiled and said, "It's nothing, think about some old things that are not worth mentioning." In fact, the old man did leave some treasures at the bottom of the box for the young man. Among them there were 2 seals which were engraved with, "Be careful with fire candles," and "Ling Zai." Chuiyu had been to Luopao Mountain in the past and he also visited Linlu Academy in Piyun Mountain. Of course, Shanjun Wei Bo must take the initiative to rush to the academy to meet the national teacher. Chuiyu once instructed Wei Bo about one thing. If you need Wei Shanjun in the future, use the word Lingza. But if someone persuades you to use something else, listen to one word of persuasion, but it can't be the neighbor next door. You just listen to the persuasion and change without the word Lingza. As for why, what, and who, just wait patiently and when the truth comes out, Wei Bo will naturally know the answer. Wei Bo was like a cloud and mist at the time, but his heart was inevitably shaken. In the dark, he always felt that this was a very important event for him. Tui Guosher, is this a prophet of uncertainty? Or is it the result of Daoist deduction? Tui Guosher, who seemed to have completely guessed Wei Bo's thoughts, had a slightly sarcastic expression on his face, and said with a smile he had to admit that sometimes, luck is better than brains. What can Wei Shanjun say? Just take it as a good word. Anyway, Xu Hu said that he had a bad mind and it really wasn't a bad thing to say. Chen Tsong said softly, "Uncle Chong, you said that your birthday is on the 5th day of the 5th lunar month, and I haven't had a birthday for you before. In fact, I've saved some money over the years. I'll go to the county seat and invite you to a good drink." Chong Bo smiled and said, "No, I don't like drinking. I understand it." The young man hummed but was obviously a little disappointed. The old man said, "Let me tell you something about the book." Chin Tsong shook his head, "I'm sleepy." Chong Bo, however, said to himself, "In the ancient poetry of 5 characters, the 3rd character is often used as a key. 7 ancient and song walks are about the 5th character. Then a person's key is determined when he is young. Looking at people is like flipping through a book, www. A novel. Com is reading people. When you grow up, you will also leave this Taoist temple, travel far away and go out to study. Those who have made great achievements in ancient times and who are famous for thousands of years have not only outstanding talents, but also extraordinary ambitions. Taiyang Xingjian gentlemen are self-improving. In ancient times, Taoist scholars, sages and sages all started from young people. I learned a few truths from books. Don't need much, you have to go far, leave your hometown, travel thousands of miles, to verify whether these principles are right or wrong, or to correct, improve, or even to overthrow these principles that were taken for granted when I was young." When the old man said this, the young man murmured softly, "Uncle Chong, but I don't want to travel far away at all, you are old. The book said parents are not far, travel must be well. But the world is big and he only has a relative like Chong Bo. Even if he can achieve the so-called travel in the book, he has to travel so far. When he comes back, Chong Bo still cooks fire and rings the bell every day in the Taoist temple. Playing drums and cleaning Taoist temples? In fact, the young man has long forgotten that the real difference between the senior brother and the younger junior brother is not in the future, but in the past, in fact, when they first met. At that time, the old man squatted down, touched the head of the child patched from a piece of natal porcelain, smiled warmly and said with a smile, "Hello, I have been forgetting to introduce myself all these years. In fact, my name is not Chong Gong, nor is it yours." "What, Uncle Chong? This is the end of this Tao protection. It doesn't matter if you don't understand this and you don't have to remember today. Don't be afraid because my real name is Cui Yu and I am your senior brother. Just because Cui Yu came from the 3 sect patriarchs after they scattered. Sword of Coming Chapter 1193. Chapter 1193. On the shore of Chuchi Lake, a short man in cotton-padded straw shoes does not like the saber on his waist, and is used to holding the scabbard in his arms. Judging from the speed of his breathing, the weight of his steps and his attitude, he seems to be a trainer who is neither high nor low. With a smile on his face, his hands wrapped around his sleeves, the man asked, "Your name is Wu Jiang?" The younger generation of Jianghu leaders, although not among Gao Jun's invitation to discuss matters, but Wu Jiang's presence here is not surprising at all. Wu Jiang nodded. Too much fame in the arena is also annoying. There are always people who take the initiative to get close to the set, but few are willing to give something affordable even if they invite you to eat or drink. When the guy in front of him walks, his hands are always hidden in his sleeves. Could it be that he is a sect master who is familiar with hidden weapons? The man asked with a smile. Is the person who taught you the sword technique called Lu Tai? Wu Jiang frowned, hesitated for a moment and said, Mingren, don't speak secretly, he is half my master. From the master to several uncles and uncles, plus the demon leader who was half a teacher, it seemed that they disappeared without a trace overnight. He spent several years traveling all over the Shikoku rivers and lakes, but could not find any trace of any of them. However, this guy in front of him is not too timid, and dares to call this demon sect leader by his name. Although Lu Tai has been missing for many years, he is not an ordinary person in the world, even if the world has become very strange no matter who it is. As long as Lu Tai is mentioned, he doesn't even call his name, it's not that person, or he still respectfully calls him the leader of Lu. As for the splendid demon sect in the past, because the group of dragons had no leader, it had long since been torn apart. If Wu Jiang hadn't forged his own iron, he would have dared not to be afraid of his relationship with the demon sect when he went out. The man said to himself, Huang Shang, who was the real protector of the Nanyuan kingdom, has always been a Taoist priest. As for Huan Yin's character, he doesn't seem like a person who is willing to accept apprentices. In this way, half of your masters, is it Tao Xiang? Wu Jiang nodded. This fellow is very clear to his own teacher. Is it also a qi cultivator who has stepped on dog and cultivated immortal magic to keep his appearance from getting old? Are you a senior in the rivers and lakes of the same generation as your master? After suffering a big loss, he couldn't beat the old man. After finally waiting for the old man to disappear, he came to bully his junior? It doesn't matter, according to the master's words, this kind of useless character practicing martial arts and cultivating immortals will not be successful. The man in green shirt asked with a smile. I heard that Lu Tai has hired a closed-door disciple who is about the same age as you? He doesn't seem to have a surname, so he is called Jianji. He uses a bamboo sword and is a swordsman. Wu Jiang had a dark face. Does this guy think that he is Mr. Village School and that Lao Tzu is Meng Tong? The man twisted his wrist and created a pot of wine out of thin air. He didn't know if it was a trick of the rivers and lakes or an immortal trick on the mountain, and gently threw it to Wu Jiang. Wu Jiang didn't reach out to pick it up, but just pushed it out with a palm and sent a thick martial arts chi to send the jug back. There are many ways to go up and down the rivers and lakes, and the masters of poison are especially hard to guard against. Once Wu Jiang was caught in the hands of a girl and the boy almost died. The man stretched out his sleeves and caught the jug that had returned the same way. In an instant, Wu Jiang approached him holding the scabbard, placed it on the opponent's shoulder, patted it and said suspiciously, Dude, that's all. Dao Xing, dare to come out and run around the world? The man remained motionless and asked with a smile, Did Lu Tai enter the nascent soul realm before disappearing here? Wu Jiang looked blank. What? While speaking, the short swordsman swept back and resumed his posture of holding the sword. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party had been chatting about things related to the master, Wu Jiang would not be interested in chatting with him. Wu Jiang and the guy who was based on seniority and had to call out a little uncle had only met once, and it was a guy with eyes on his forehead. But I once heard from the master that the master was a little too fond of this closed-door disciple. He not only taught the immortal art in person but also taught boxing and sent out a lot of swordsmanship alone. The master also gave the same age a bamboo sword. Hearing the master drink high, he mentioned it. The bamboo sword has the word Shedue engraved on it. The man smiled and said, By the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Qin Pingon. I'm a friend of half of your master, a good friend. Wu Jiang twitched the corners of his mouth. I said I was dinging, do you believe it? There are a lot of new tricks in the current charlatans. Qin Pingon raised the jug in his hand, shook it and said, "It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, I am Qin Pingon. This jug of Xinjia wine is real, do you dare to drink it?" Zhou Xian, the unidentified goddess Jiang, the Wujiang who belongs to the remainders of the demon sect, and a large group of young martial arts masters springing up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Although there is only one martial artist in the golden body for the time being, Zhou Xian, but there are 6. The number of Jingwufu is far more than that of Qin Pingon when he entered the Lotus Flower Blessed Land, almost doubling. The key is that the number of 6-level warriors will continue to increase in the next 20 or 30 years, and it will only stabilize after 30 years. The great disciple of Kai Shan deliberately broke the boundary here. The few martial arts gifts from Pei Qian are of course very important, but if we push a few steps forward, it seems that the old Guanzhu is still in his own 1/3 of an acre of land. Have already cultivated a lot of good seedlings? Otherwise, no matter how strong the martial arts of Lotus Root Blessed Land is, it will gradually concentrate on a small group of pure martial artists, rather than the current big year in the rivers and lakes. Wu Jiang stared at the man of the divine way, silent for a moment, and said, "No merit, no reward, tell me who is the enemy who wants me to kill." It was agreed in advance that it is okay to kill people but not to kill people. Now if you, the court is strictly controlled and the wind is tight. Since you are the kind of chi cultivator on the mountain, you must be a good enemy who you do not deal with. It is not difficult to sneak up on him and chop him a few times, but if you really want to cause death, it is not what a trivial matter. I don't have to be forced to be a wanted criminal running around for a jar of so-called Xinjia wine. Qin Pingon burst into laughter. As expected of a disciple taught by Tao Xiang, it was a blessing that Tao Xiang didn't teach it carefully, so he raised his arm and said, "As soon as I see it, I will give you a drink without any payment." Wu Jiang is considered Lu Tai's disciple and grandchild in any way. He has become an elder when the tide has risen, so he must give him some greetings. Wu Jiang sneered and said, "Are you planning to use a long line to catch big fish, or do you want to sworn brothers with me and I've gotten to know each other well so that I can work for you?" Many Jianghu romance and koan novels are written like this. They seem to be a gentleman with a sanctimonious appearance, but in fact they are very dark-hearted, and murderers have no blood on their hands. It's a good thing that I haven't married a beautiful daughter-in-law yet, otherwise I'd have to take it easy. As soon as Wu Jiang thought of this, he looked at the other party again, and he was quite a dog, so he had to stay away. Master is right, the rivers and lakes are sinister, and there are not many good birds flying around in high places. Farmers say farming is hard, and those who read say reading is hard. Swap them and see how. Those who practice martial arts say it is good to practice martial arts, and those who practice Taoism say that it is good to practice Taoism. In a fight, it's the difference. A man and a woman are fishing by the lake. Either way, put down the fish basket first. The perch of Chiochi Lake is very famous, and it is the favorite of the gluttonous people in the northern Jin dynasty and Songlai. Those who really like fishing often also like to watch people fishing. Sitting in the shade of a tree with wicker sticks hanging like a curtain, I saw the young man who looked like a chi trainer suddenly raised his rod and caught a new perch. The young man took off the hook and threw it into the fish basket. The woman on the side was born with a plump body and a dignified temperament, with a charming face, but there was an awe-inspiring air between her eyebrows. She was born in a mountain and wild spirit, but she succeeded in refining her shape, and looking at her spirit, she was probably in a lecherous temple somewhere, and she had not yet received the official seal of the imperial court, so her golden body of the temple was not stable enough, and her true appearance occasionally swayed, like the wind after the wind. Qin Pingon sat on the bank, lifted the mud seal and drank wine. Wu Jiang hesitated for a while, but came to squat beside this person. Wu Jiang was not worried that the other party would violently attack, and the other party didn't look like that kind of powerful thing. In the words of Xuanji Yuxian on a certain knife score, it was light-hearted. The only exception is the kind of martial arts masters who return to nature, such as the master Lu Tai. Private fights are now strictly prohibited in the Chiochi Lake boundary. Once discovered, both sides will fight regardless of the reason, regardless of whether it is about boxing or fighting, all of them will be won. A few guys have been arrested for a vegetarian meal in Demugwan these days. Qin Pingon asked in his heart, "Master Wu, do you know their identities?" Wu Jiang nodded and said, "They all come from the barbarian land in the southernmost part of Songlai country. The man is Yuan Huang. He is a so-called cultivator genius like you mountain chi cultivators. It is said that his marksmanship went straight to Qing Yuanshan, and he rejected the invitation of the Hushan faction a few years ago. The woman is the goddess of the mountain, goddess of the Daishan temple. What is the name of the begging flower field? Yuan Huang was born as a young ranger and his family was ruined. In the middle of the night when the snowflakes were as big as his hands, the young man sneaked a gun at night, entered a military town official residence and stabbed the enemy's head, and then stomped him down. Huang finally found a long rope that was several feet long, tied the enemy's head at one end and tied his hair in a bun at the other end, dragged the spear and ran wildly in the snowy night. His figure was faster than the arrow and the horse couldn't gallop. It's a good one to solve the grievances and take people's heads. Wu Jiang continued. Yuan Huang has a better-known friend. He is short and he likes to meddle in his own business. He specializes in the kind of injustice that has nothing to do with him. Every time he takes a shot he is either cut off or chopped off. Lex Wu Kei knows I used a knife like me. Several disciples and grandchildren were slaughtered by this person. Wu Kei didn't dare to fart, but it was not impossible to beat him. The desperados who wear shoes, master said. Most of the Edo seniors who have a reputation in a sector like this. There are no requirements for swordsmanship, let alone anything in return, just to let me not become like this in the future. I think it makes sense, so I have never thought about opening a martial arts hall or relying on witch court, not asking people for power, money and territory. If you want a woman you can ignore the sky and the earth and be more free. After talking so much about Wu Jiang he turned his head and asked, Dude, we are all going to the rivers and lakes. What is the primary purpose of going out? I'm so honest, can't you tell the truth? To be precise, please drink again. Qin Pingon smiled and replied, Treat people with sincerity. Wu Jiang was silent. This young master with a knife was covered in fine sweat on his forehead. Just because the only time I followed the master was to meet the master who was the leader of the sect. Impression is too deep. The main altar of the demon sect that twists and turns, and the impression of the heavily guarded, bone-riddled morning. I thought I walked into a fairyland of fat powder piles. It was even more awkward when the young man saw that master, seeing that the other party was neither an old man with a childish face nor a burly man, but more like a son of a noble family, and he was more beautiful than the women he saw on the road earlier. The young man with a gold hairpin on his head, wore a loose snow-white robe, took off his boots, and sat cross-legged on a dragon chair that was brought from nowhere. He looked at the restrained boy who was standing at the door, kneeling and kowtowing. Lu Tai smiled and asked, Young man, he looks like a piece of black charcoal. Not bad, that's very pleasing. I ask you a question, if you answer wrong, I'll let Tao Xiang screw your head. Come down, the answer is okay, so don't call Shigong, but at least you can be full of beards and tails, where you come from, where you go. If you answer well, I will tell you how many times your master has to learn the unique skills of Heratzi Qijing Wufu just around the corner. What do you think is the purpose of walking alone in the rivers and lakes? The young man has long been frightened. Tao Xiang coughed to remind the boy who couldn't afford to kneel. The leader asked you something. The young man regained his senses and said in a trembling voice, Live. Lu Tai rubbed his chin. Just barely, let's do it. Remember, walk the rivers and lakes and treat people with sincerity. Remember. The dark boy's teeth chattered. Report to the leader and write it down. He raised his chin. A maid holding a box, took out a martial arts book from her sleeve and threw it to the boy at the door. It is because of this knife manual that Wu Jiang can improve his martial arts and his skills skyrocket. Of course, master took it and copied it. Wu Jiang used the method of gathering sound into a line and asked carefully, Dare to ask the name of the immortal. Qin Pingon laughed heartily. I said that I am Qin Pingon, but you don't believe it. Just change the statement and you will believe it? Wu Jiang whispered, How dare you believe this kind of thing? Also in the capital of Nanyuan, Ding Ying killed Zhu Lian and you killed Ding Ying. It is said that Yu Zhini, who even let Yu Jian fly, did not dare to enter the city. Especially Wu Jiang. I once heard a terrifying news from my master. The master and the Xianxia named Qin are close friends. Qin Pingon threw a pot of wine and asked, Wu Jiang, what do you think about the world today? Wu Jiang was not pretentious this time. He reached out to catch the jug, lifted the mud seal and sniffed hard, good wine. Before drinking, the young people are a little drunk. Wu Jiang raised his head and poured a large mouthful of the so-called Xinjiao wine brewing. After taking a sip, the whole Rinqiao acupoint was like a rainy season. After a shock, his face flushed red, he snorted and sighed, No wonder everyone wants to be a god. After digesting the spirit of the wine, Wu Jiang regained his senses. Just like when he was a teenager, he met Lu Tai for the first time, carefully considered it and said solemnly, "The current world is mostly bizarre and mysterious, and it is impossible to change everywhere. It's possible things that I never dared to think about before have become a dream come true. Those who learn martial arts and practice boxing have the hope of surpassing those legendary figures who once seemed invincible. Great masters like Qiu and Qing Yuanshan, those who practice immortality can even think of longevity. It seems that overnight all the famous mountains and rivers in the world have their own masters. All countries are worshipping and officials are busy. Build ancestral temples and the common people are especially pious when they burn incense." Having said that, Wu Jiang looked up at the sky and said with a complicated expression, "I once met a friend who accidentally hit and stumbled halfway through the practice of immortality, saying that this is the beauty of the gods." Shaking his head, he took another sip of wine. He didn't dare to drink too much this time. Wu Jiang looked at the dazzling autumn lake and murmured, "It's just that gods have appeared and ghosts are brimming with ghosts. I have martial arts skills. It will be considered a good thing and the common people may not find it interesting and more panicked." Qin Pingon nodded, "It's good for you to think so. You don't have to think about how to save drinking and have another pot when you're done. Just drink it with confidence. Your alcohol capacity will definitely be no match for my magic power." In terms of persuading wine, the second shopkeeper is at least equal to the realm of martial arts. Wu Jiang was shocked and said, "Qin Jianxian will still use the fairy method of wine?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "I can't teach and I can't teach. Because this magical power is also called rich. After all, Qin Pingon doesn't have the realm and face of Master Lu, so he can really carry immortal brew from all over the world without asking for it." Qin Pingon took out another pot of wine, handed it to Wu Jiang and asked with a smile, "Since you view the world this way, how have you been in the world all these years?" Wu Jiang hesitated, thinking about it, but he swallowed those beautiful words and answered honestly, "A bachelor. If you just want to go around the world, at least it won't hurt anyone." Qin Pingon nodded with a smile, "Just relying on this outfit, you know you're not lying. 6 realm warriors already have a share of martial arts in their bodies, and where they can't eat hot and spicy, even if they go to the court to find a military general with a high official status, it is a trivial matter." Wu Jiang was full of embarrassment. Not all the storytellers of Tianqiao said that he was unshaven, disheveled, wandering the rivers and lakes, either a hero or a hero. On a ship bound for Luodai Island, Peixiang, the lord of the Fox Kingdom who had already taken away the power fence, was sitting on the top floor drinking tea and enjoying the scenery with 3 remaining fox fairies by his side. She is the temporary steward of the building boat specially waiting for the national lord, Peixiang. She is a young female crown from Demugwen and one of the direct disciples of Guanhua Gonghua. At this event she was specially responsible for receiving people and things. At this moment she knelt on the white ivory mat and made tea herself to entertain guests. Bo Xing handed over tea cups for several distinguished guests and said with a sweet smile, "My family is the Lord. In order to welcome the Lord, I made a special trip to build a new mansion on Luodai Island, named Gu Yuexian, just waiting for the Lord to land on the island. Don't dislike it, Gu Yuexian will be the private mansion of the country lord in the future. And in the future Qi cultivators from the Fox Kingdom who come to Chuchi Lake to play can live there." Demugwen seems to be willing to give special treatment to female Qi practitioners and gods of mountains and rivers. Peixiang nodded with a smile. "I saw Gong Hujun when I looked back and I must thank her face to face." After some small talk she mentioned Bo Xing's background. She smiled and said, "My ancestors lived in that Lanjiang River for generations not far from Chuchi Lake. My ancestors were all the people who were discharged from the river." Guizhujiu leaned back, stretched out his hand to lift the curtain, and looked at Yang Lui's shore of the lake, admiring it. "Master, the villain was really comfortable. There are 9 continents in Hauran and there are 14 states in the Qingming world. Among them, only Ruzhou is the only place where it is recognized that Wu Yun oppresses Dao Qi. It is only because of the Qijin dynasty in Ruzhou that there is a Lin Shi, who sits in Yashan. In addition, there are many water towns in Ruzhou, so it is also the most troublesome territory for Daoist officials in the Wangqi line of Baiyujing. There is a Changjiang River in Ruzhou. The water transportation is the best in a state, and it is one of the 6 dungeons in Qingming. A man and a woman walked side by the big water. The strong river wind blew their faces and their sleeves rattled. The man smiled and said, "It's a state instead of a continent, which is enough to see the disparity between the two worlds in the transportation of mountains and water." Lin Xianxian has always been alone before going out, but this time it was an exception. With a young woman by her side, it was Sudian who came to the door not long ago. She came from the small town of Huaihuang County in the old Lizhu Cave, Aquarius Island. According to the Real seniority, can be regarded as his junior sister, but now Sudian has changed its name to Su Li in Yashan, and has been apprenticed to a disciple of Lin Jiangxian, and the seniority has opened up at once. At the beginning Lin Jiangxian was worried that Sudian would be unhappy, so he made a draft, saying that this was just an expedient measure to hide people's eyes and ears. Baiyujing was no better than Haoran Confucian Temple, and it was easy to be followed by Daoist officials who were proficient in fortune-telling. I never thought that Sudian would not wait at that time. After Lin Jiangxian finished speaking, she simply replied, "As long as she can learn true boxing here, it doesn't matter if she is a handyman who needs to bring tea and water to people every day." Su Dian habitually referred to the other party as Master Lin. "Master Lin, how long is it until the next martial arts review?" Not only did she follow the customs of the countryside, but now she is under the tutelage of others, mainly because of Lin Jiangxian's martial arts accomplishments. It seems that it is disrespectful to call Master Lin. According to the mountain customs of Qingming world, the 100-year-old evaluation compiled by the Xianzhang school, and the 10-year-old evaluation given by Bing Jishan, the Jiazi evaluation of the 10 warriors, the people who watch the lively are actually not satisfied, complaining that the former is too short. After 100 years, that's all. There are some old faces with no suspense on the list. At most there is a small adjustment in the ranking. At the same time I dislike the latter's longevity. Except for Lin Shi, who is the first person without suspense, there are 9 people behind him. The list is almost all newcomers. After all, pure martial arts, often 100 years old, is an old age. Lin Jiangxian said with a smile, "The new list has only been around for a few years, and according to the rules it should be like this. But thanks to the White Lotus route within the Jiazi, a river and lake is not so lifeless. She likes to ask people about boxing and her shots are heavy." Several of the defeated generals were either killed or injured, and they fell out of the list within a few days. Those who were on the list back then who had not yet been approached by Bai-O, were inevitably apprehensive, fearing that they were not good at learning and would lose. Quan was humiliated again and his reputation was ruined. He was not on the list at that time, but he felt that he had hope of being among the next 10 martial arts critics. Young people also began to worry. Is it true that they want to take their lives for a little reputation? Believe it? Before the announcement of the last list, Long Xinpu, who is the patriarch of Bing Jishan, must have been to the Qingxin dynasty beforehand and greeted Bai-O. After passing his anger, I guess Yixiang will also tell Bai-O a few words. Let her stop being so sharp. The two walked into the tributary of the Majia River, formerly known as the Dragon. On the hillside where the rivers converge, there is a shrine with flat incense. Along the way there were occasional tourists by the river, but none of them could recognize the identity of the middle-aged man in green shirt. This has something to do with Lin Jiangxian's dislike of showing his face. Yashan is located in the Qijin dynasty, but any ceremony held by the dynasty is at most Lin Jiangxian. A certain direct disciple of Lin Jiangxian came forward. Every time Lin Jiangxian went out to travel he almost always walked in the city and rivers and lakes. Just like the last time he made an exception to attend the Great Chao sect wedding banquet, Lin Jiangxian just chose a corner to sit silently and used a pseudonym. When a pure martial artist climbs high, his heart and energy always come first, then his fist. He is no different than a cultivator who has lived for hundreds of thousands of years. The martial artist has only practiced boxing for so many decades. If you don't even think about it, you can't walk to that high place in my heart. Lin Jiangxian said, "You are here, take the White Lotus route as a reference, there is no problem. There is a gap between the two sides and the gap is not small now, but if you work hard you can always see a back. It's better than being in my hometown always comparing myself with Shuang Pei. As your imaginary enemy, you are destined to be incapable of getting around in the future. One of them is too high, and Pei Cup is the well-deserved #1 in Haoran martial arts. Don't talk about asking her, you probably won't be easy to meet her. One is too close, in Luopao Mountain in her hometown, and Pei Qian is younger than you, obviously her martial arts qualifications are better, It's okay if you lose a boxing once or twice. When the punches are withdrawn, the opponent is out of good intentions just because your own temperament is not tough enough, then there will be big trouble. So you come here and change to a new environment, it is right. Su Dian said, after all, Bai O is the third in the world, Master Lin. Would it be too much for me to pursue her as a target? After all, it's one thing to have anger and it's another thing to have the facts. Lin Xian smiled and said, what are you afraid of with my senior brother? Everything is possible. I will help teach boxing and feeding boxing and you will no longer be an idiot. But you need to eat one bite at a time. I made a list for you. There are about 5 or 6 martial arts masters on it. You will ask them about boxing within 30 years. It was agreed in advance that as long as you lose a game, you are not qualified to fight with Bai O in this life. Su Dian took a deep breath. I will never disappoint Master Lin. Lin Xian shook his head and said, I'm just doing my senior brother's responsibility and I didn't have high hopes for you. I just paid off an old debt. There's nothing to be disappointed about. You just need to keep yourself from being disappointed. Although Su Dian has a very low rank in Yashan, the real master is still Lin Xian. In the next 20 to 30 years, Lin Xian will personally instruct Su Dian to learn martial arts and practice martial arts, which may be even more personal than those nominal disciples. The White Lotus root in the Qingming world can be roughly regarded as Pei Cup, the female warrior of the vast world. To a certain extent, Yao Qing, the elegant minister, may be the White Lotus root that was carefully cultivated and copied according to this paradigm and authentic work of Pei Cup. Bai O, the female national teacher of the Qingshan dynasty, with a short halberd attached to her waist, named Iron Room, is a magical weapon recorded by Bai Yujing. Ending martial artist standing at the top of martial arts for more than 100 years. Now he is the third martial artist in Qingming world, second only to Lin Xian in hard work. There were 10 martial arts critics on the list twice, and Bai O was on the list for the first time at the bottom of the ranking. Even so, there is still a lot of criticism. A woman in her 40s has just entered the realm. No matter how good the martial arts talent is, she has never asked the master of the realm about boxing. Even before becoming the master of the 10 realms, when Lotus was in the far travel realm and the mountain peak realm, she was even more famous and she was still the noble female national teacher. As for Wen Quan, she didn't seem to have any achievements worth mentioning. As a result, everyone in one state said she was a martial artist. As a talented student, everyone in the outside world will suspect that she is actually difficult under her reputation? Could it be that he deliberately released water so that there was a female martial artist on the list and let her be included in the review? Facts have proved that this is not the case because every 10 years after this, Bai O will follow the order of this list to find the 9th and 8th martial arts critics. And these martial artists who are ranked before her ask each other. One punch. As a result, in the 4 questioning boxings that the world looked at, Bai O won all of them, 3 of them died and 1 survived. The reason why there were no 5th and 6th games was because Bai O, who was the national teacher of Qingshan, skipped several rankings in one breath and took the initiative to go to Yashan Mountain in Ruzhou. She chose to ask the teacher Lin directly. Of course lost. So when she was among the top 3 in the second martial arts review, there was only little criticism left. The only flaw that could be picked out was that she had the hand halberd called Iron Room. It's just that it's not that she ranks among the top 10 people and ranks so high, but that she ranks among the top 3 in martial arts with this magical weapon. Maybe it's a little small problem? So much so that Bing Jeshan, who had been suffocated for a long time after giving the list among the dozens of notes, the second one was, whoever has any objection to the ranking, go and ask Bai O. Su Dian asked, Master Lin on the list, is there a soldier who resolves the mountain in Yueying? Lin Xian nodded and said, if there is any accident such as sudden fall one day, then your third question is her. Su Dian asked, if I come here will I cause some extra trouble for Master Lin? Lin Xian shook his head and said, I asked you to change your name earlier and recognize a low-ranking Yashan martial artist as your master. Not because Yashan is afraid of causing trouble, but to make you better in martial arts, concentrate on boxing and don't have to be distracted. A dazzling identity can save a lot of trivial matters. Of course, it's also a kind of temptation for me to meet you for the first time. I'm mainly worried that you are young and energetic. If you recognize your senior brother, you will not know how high the sky is in Ruzhou. Whether it is a pure martial artist or a cultivator, Your heart is biased, or if you have something to rely on, your achievements are often lower. Lin Xian said with a smile. Actually, Baiyujing has an internal list. There are not many names, less than the number of hands. It is said that each of the 3 headmasters can add or tick off a few names as long as they stay in the list. The ones on the list exist as exceptions that are completely unconstrained and supervised by Baiyujing, and I happen to be one of them. Of course, Lin Xian also heard about this kind of secret. He could never go to the top of Baiyujing to read this account book. The big headmaster Ko Ming wrote 2 names on it. Xian Duguan Sun Huizhong and Li Yefeng worked hard. The second head taught Yudo and only wrote 1 name, Baolin. Lu Qin wrote a long list, but most of them were crossed out on the spot by senior brother Yudo. The last remaining names were less than 5 people, including Huayang Palace Gao Gu Baigu Zhenren, and the latest one Zhang Fenghai, who had just betrayed Baiyujing. And Yashan Forest Master is not the name written by the 3 headmasters, but written by the Daoist ancestors. It has been more than 3,000 years since the last time Daozu wrote by himself. The name Daozu wrote that time was Lu Qin. These, of course, is Master Lu, a guy who was full and supported. When he came to Yashan in Ruzhou for a drink one year, he took the initiative to leak it to Master Lin. Because the matter was too confidential, Lin Xian didn't explain the content to Su Dian in detail. Su Dian asked curiously, Master Lin, how powerful can a martial artist like you be when you deliver a punch? Lin Xian thought for a while and seemed to be really stumped by such a simple question. After a moment of silence, he smiled casually. Among the martial arts colleagues, it seems that there is really no reference. It is roughly equivalent to the full strength of an Ascension Realm Sword cultivator. Strike. Yashan is a Jianghu sect that has only been built for more than 100 years. The family is not enough and there is no such isolated cave in the world. Otherwise, I can practice a few punches to give you a more intuitive impression. In this Ruzhou in the world, I should not use all my fists. The movement may be relatively large and the Qin Tianjian in various countries will definitely report it to Baiyujing. Today is different from the past. It is better to be quiet and not to move. You need to watch the fire from across the mountain. Su Dian asked, Master Lin, with the rise of Bingjishan, will it take away part of the martial arts of Yashan and Ruzhou? Lin Xian laughed dumbly. Dian Su knew that he had asked an inappropriate idiot question. It turns out that Bingjishan in Yongzhou has flourished in the martial arts movement in the last 100 years, and there is a sign that it will compete with Yashan in Ruzhou. Because the sect has 2 young martial arts masters, a man and a woman, on the list at the same time, watching together. The Taoist name is Riding the Whale. In Yu, the Taoist name is Yu Qing. On the top of a mountain at the same time, there are 2 martial artists who are among the world's martial arts critics. One can imagine the greatness of martial arts. Although there is Master Lin sitting on the top of the mountain in Yashan, even Zhao Hechong, the first apprentice of Master Lin, a martial arts master who was originally regarded as a stable leader, was not included in the list this time. And Bingjie Mountain is also one of the few Taoist officials in the Qingming world who can practice both Taoism and martial arts. The reason why they can't rank among the top Taoist sects is that the ancestors of all dynasties are almost meaningless. In history, no one has ever been able to. Among the 10 people in the world, 10 candidates. If it is said that Bingjishan has found another way, since the martial arts has suppressed the immortal energy, then simply turn to the martial arts master in the sect who wholeheartedly cultivate. It is completely possible to pinch the tip of martial arts geniuses from several states around Yongzhou. As long as the mountain gate is opened and martial artists other than Taoist officials are recruited to the outside world, I believe that young girls who are willing to take the initiative to rush to Bingjishan to learn from their teachers will definitely. There is an endless stream, and several state courts and first-class immortals are also very willing to send martial arts geniuses within their respective jurisdictions to Bingjie Mountain, and they will be the best Taoist guardians for their own heirs and young Taoist officials when they go down the mountain for training. Unlike today's 14 states of Qingming, Wufu only recognizes Yashan, and Grand Master only recognizes Lin Shi. After a long time, such as 100 years later, a little longer, 300 or 500 years, Yashan Forest Master, after all, is only a pure martial artist with a limited lifespan. The warriors of Bingjishan are uniquely endowed by nature. As long as they enter the hall, Yongzhou will start every 300 to 500 years. Lin Xian explained with a smile. The combination of martial arts and law is actually a sieve. The most embarrassing thing is that it is the great talents that are sifted out. Solving the mountains is a self-awareness. As for a few special cases, isolated cases and what can be proved, this kind of person, under Pei Bai's hands, can be Chao Ci, and in other places, it will be Chao Ci. The difference is only a few years before he becomes famous. In short, Bing Jishan can make the dojo grow stronger and deeper by pinching the martial arts. But it will never become the second Crow Mountain. Unless Bing Jishan can find one or two pure warriors like Chao Ci and Qin Pingon, they will collect disciples and spread their branches. Su Dian said, I heard that Bing Jishan Taoist officials have the tradition of 1,000 years of doom. Occasionally Taoist priests can live for 1,000 years. Does it have anything to do with this? Lin Xianxia nodded and said, if it weren't for this, it's just a matter of collecting dozens of martial arts secrets and cultivating a group of preachers who focus on teaching boxing. How can the world's top dojos not take advantage of this huge amount of money? Su Dian said, it's like a landscape colliding with each other? Lin Jiangxian smiled and said, this analogy is quite good. Lin Jiangxian once went to the Bingjie Mountains and met Qi Guan and Yu from a distance. The former was actually very talented and he did not lose to the first disciple Zhao Hechong, but deep down this person still lived in seclusion in the mountains and yearned for longevity. The Taoist is self-proclaimed, and she admires the knowledge of the headmaster Lu Qin the most in her life. The latter is more like a pure martial artist, but unfortunately there is no guidance from a master. Apart from practicing with her brother Qi Guanwen, she has no idea what above the first level of Guizhen is. Arrived, and she still has the biggest problem: she is too afraid of losing her punches. From Lin Jiangxian's point of view, Yu, who was already in the nascent soul realm, would have a big problem if she wanted to be in the upper 5 realms in the future, and her martial arts climbing to the top was too smooth. Just because of her inner demon, she is destined to be an invincible Yu, and the inner demon will crush a Taoist heart of Taoist Yu and all the hearts of Wufu Yu into pieces. The grand occasion of the top 10 warriors in the world, Wuxian occupies the second place, may not last for a few years. Therefore, not long ago the mountain master Bing Jishan, who had also anticipated this matter, secretly sent a letter to Yashan, hoping to ask Master Lin to help once. If it wasn't for Su Dian, who happened to come here to recognize relatives, Yu could be one of the targets for mutual training of martial arts with his junior sister Su Dian, and Lin Jiangxian would ignore it. Therefore, when Yashan replied with a letter to Bing Jishan, it was considered to agree to this matter, but the latter unexpectedly sent a sincere letter of thanks to Yashan, promising that the main members of the Bingjishan Patriarchate will be there soon. Come to the Qijin dynasty in Ruzhou to participate in the birthday celebration of His Majesty the Emperor, and then come back to harass Master Lin. In fact, if Master Lin of Yashan was too lazy to reply to a letter, Patriarch Bing Jishan had no choice but to go to a certain compatriot landlord in Baiyujing for help. But in this way the old mountain master will be ready, and he will definitely be scolded by his own patriarch, who is too high, Qingling, in his patriarch's hall. The Taoist priest with the Taoist name, Qingling, is the only old man of the same age as Sun Huizhong and Gao Gu, who secretly went to Xuandu in Qizhou to look for Wang Sunday. In Yongzhou there are indeed a few cultivators. In addition to the fact that the fall was like Long Xinpu, who was eating, and the grandson of Zuandugwen, as well as the predecessor of Jiang Zhaomo Zikalu, they were all from Yongzhou. Now Bing Jishan, there is still a young Taoist official who is only half 100 years old, and his fame is even greater than that of Qi Guan and Yu, who are on the list of martial arts critics. Fuchuan, the Taoist name is Xianchan. Not yet 50 years old now, he is a close disciple of the contemporary mountain master. After more than 30 years of cultivation in the mountains, he has been praised by the outside world as the second of Zhang Fenghai in Baiyujing and Yaoqing in Yongzhou. On the side of Bingjie Mountain, from the mountain chief to the members of the ancestral master hall, but the house kept reporting, desperately clarifying the matter, saying that the qualifications of our family's Fuchuan are only acceptable, you don't want to spit people. Does anyone believe it? It is only said that Zuandugwen and Bing Jishan once fought for this cultivator embryo in Yongzhou. In short, it was very unpleasant. In the end, Fu Quan chose Bing Jishan from his hometown in Benzhou. The reason given by this child back then was very interesting, and he was close to home. Fortunately, Sun Guanzhu, who was in Zuandugwen at that time, went out for a long trip and disappeared for many years. Otherwise, Bing Jishan would not dare to tear up his face with Xian Duguan so much, and he would also fight for the talisman to return to the mountain. After all, it was the young man Zuanduguan found earlier, so Bing Jishan was more or less justified. Even so, Long Xinpu bravely and secretly worked hard to block Xuandu Guan Jiangxian's menacing line of sword soldiers to Jiashan. It is rumored that Fu Quan, who was still a young man at the time, could virtually eliminate the grievances in the mountains with just one sentence, so that the two sides would not have a gap in their hearts because of this. If Daoist Sun personally took me to Xuandu Temple to practice, I wouldn't have to hesitate. I would immediately leave with him and hesitate for a while. It would be disrespectful to Daoist Sunday. It's very spiritual. When Sun Daoyuan traveled home, he heard the words, stroked his beard and laughed and praised Fu Quan. Good boy, treat people with sincerity, very like Xianxia do you. Soon there was a saying that there was a nose and eyes, saying that Zuanduguan Sun Daoist said something personally. It's all nonsense, it's too unreliable. What Zhang Fenghai is the second Xiao Yaoqing. It is clear that Zhang Fenghai is the second Fuquan. Yaoqing has to call himself the old Fuquan. Now that Daoist Sun has clarified so much, the newspapers on the Biezhou Mountains will not continue to make Fu Quan famous. After all, Daoist Sun holds the most vengeance. You refute the poor Taoist. The poor Taoist is clumsy and can't quarrel with you, so you have to ask you to come from your family Taoist temple to sweep the floor. I really don't believe it. If anyone goes to Zuanduguan to be a guest, of course, it is a real guest in the literal sense, as long as you see those Taoist priests whose robes are not in Zuanduguan style walking on the road and seeing them carrying brooms and toilets. Yes, it's better to be a little respectful because their realm is definitely not low. As for Jiang Zhaoma of the Ziki building in Baiyujing, he has practiced both Taoism and martial arts in this life, but he has never been included in the martial arts evaluation. Therefore, he was reputed by someone as the Dao boy who guards the gate of the mountain of martial arts in the world. Therefore, it is referred to as door boy. As for who is the someone who dares to ridicule a landlord of Baiyujing like this, you can use your to know who it is. They all speculated that Bing Jishan was so daring. It was most likely the result of someone instigating him. In addition, earlier every time Xianzhang Mountain selected the 10 people in the world, they were accustomed to have an 11th candidate, and this person and Zuanduguan Sun Daoist. One was called the 5th person who could not be beaten by thunder, and the other was the 11th. This monk who has been ranked 11th for more than 10 consecutive times is the first person on the mountain in Ruzhou. He has an excellent relationship with Daoist Sunday. His surname is Zhu and he calls himself someone. Therefore, the last hidden official of the Sword Qi Great Wall at the time became the Qin Shi of several young people in the world. After learning about this, the Qingming world felt that the three of them could get together to drink at a table. It's a pity that Zhu someone failed to keep the title of 11th under heaven this time. Now the two great female masters except by O on the list, in addition to Bingji Shenyuang, also come from a place called Pipa Peak in Yuzhou, and the woman is Gu Yang'a. She was born out of nowhere and was born out of nowhere. Her family background and teacher's inheritance are unknown. These two female masters were in a similar situation to Bai Us first time on the list. They were both selected, but they were criticized and they were not small. Xian Du Guan, Daoist Sun, stood up again and said a fair word. After the scars are healed, the pain is forgotten, and they have to be slapped on your face to know the pain. Zhou Xian also has a similar view, but he said it more elegantly, which is also in line with Zhou Xian's consistent style. What's wrong with the woman? This is called Missouri Shua's crescent eyebrows without heroic spirit, not flattering to the king at the foot of the mountain, but teaching the immortals to bow down on the mountain. Su Dian asked a question that had been buried in his heart for many years. Master Lin, the reincarnation of the Taoist monks on the mountain will almost always be incomplete. Yan, can you still be counted as that person back then? Lin Zhangxian smiled knowingly. What do you think is the most fundamental reason why people are human? Su Dian shook his head. Lin Zhangxian stretched his finger to his heart, then raised his arm and clicked on his temple. I think it is these two places. The intersection of human heart and memory is a human being. Lin Zhangxian stopped and asked with a smile. Can you imagine that I'm walking all the way with Lin Zhangxian standing at every step? If that's the case, ask me about boxing. How can I win? Su Dian was stunned. Lin Zhangxian smiled and said, I'm just a pure martial artist. Of course, I can't reach this level, but there are people in the world who can do it. Su Dian, the world is very big and only when you climb high can you see far. The footprints of the Buddha walking through the world are like a Buddha standing in the world, and the Buddha Dharma is immeasurable. Daozu left the dojo, went out the door and made the robes and boots. Another example, the sound of books in the world is the power of the most holy masters. Lin Xianxian raised his hand and the snow-white sword light flashed suddenly. After receiving a letter from Feijian, he opened it and looked at the content and said with a smile, I have to go back to Yashan. There are guests. Su Dian clasped his fists to say goodbye. Lin Jiangxian's toes lightly tapped and a cyan rainbow light cut through the sky. Xia, a sword fairy from a foreign country who visited Lizhu Cave, and Lin Jiangxian, the first martial artist in the Qingming world. His true identity is the sacrificial official who intercepted all the martial arts of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Coupled with Hao Su, a criminal who is already in Baiyujing, he just doesn't know when the last hidden official, Qin Pingon, who is a colleague, will appear in the Qingming world. In the boat on Qiuqi Lake, Zhang Lu Changming narrowed her eyes and lowered her head to drink tea. Her golden eyes were full of brilliance. Since ancient times, strangeness does not separate families, and one strangeness attracts several strangeness. First, Bai Yi took the lead and successfully watched the birth of the first sword cultivator in the Taoist world. With a single stroke, the whole body was moved. At this moment, the world seemed to open a door and visions appeared everywhere. In a blessed land, for sword cultivators appeared at the same time. In the land of Nanyuan country and Jiangyi, a weak woman who yearns for the rivers and lakes but cannot travel far because of her status. She is sleepy in the boudoir, resting her cheeks with one hand, yawning and casually flipping through a book she collected and compiled by herself. The booklet is filled with frontier poems and sword-chanting poems. In an instant, the woman only felt cool and refreshing. This beautiful lady, who was born weak and sick, was instantly bright and light as a feather. Then she felt nauseous, dizzy, abdominal cramps, and her stomach began to turn upside down. Turning her head, she began to vomit on the ground. For a while, the house was filled with a foul smell. She thought she was the woman who died in the book. She vomited out and finally stopped retching. The sweaty woman stretched out her hand to cover her heart. In a trance, a scalding fire dragon wandered from the heart orifice to the meridians and rushed to her palm. She looked down and saw that there was a line like a winding line. She hurriedly spread her palms and shook her vigorously, and finally she threw a bright red pocket dagger, more than an inch long, hanging in the air, and then a magical thing like the legendary sword pill started to surround her. Rotate like a bird leaning on someone. When the maid who heard the sound saw this scene, she saw a ghost during the day, and was so frightened that she fainted on the spot. In the desolate land bordering the grasslands of the northern Jin kingdom, a bearded ranger riding a donkey and carrying a sword, with a face of 100 years old, full of alcohol, swaying, drank the last sip of crude shochu and threw the jug far away. He snorted and suddenly widened his eyes. He spit out a mouthful of his alcohol, and a light hovered in his sight, slender as a finger, radiant and radiant. The man rubbed his eyes, and it was vaguely seen that he has a strange short sword wrapped in precious light. The blade is narrow and pitch black as ink. There was a dark-skinned, sturdy young woman on the grassland. Although her appearance was not a beauty, her unusually full and elastic round buttocks made her whole person reveal a kind of exuberant anger. Inside the tent, the woman was breastfeeding her child. The cyan meridians set off the towering and became whiter, just like the beautiful suet and jade she had picked up from the riverbed and piled up on the table. When she was a girl, she picked up a rusty bronze ancient sword and hung it on the wall. At this moment, the woman stretched out her fingers and pinched her bulging chest. She suddenly raised her head, her face was blank, and she heard the sound of swords on the wall. In a Taoist temple where incense is prosperous in Songlai country, a young Taoist boy squatted on the steps with a broom in his arms. Watching the incense smoke rising, he was fascinated, and in a trance he saw a wisp of incense condensing into a line, as if it had spread to the sky. The young Daotong raised his head and stared blankly at the long line of incense. Chang Min spoke with the mountain master about this matter with the voice of his heart. Qin Pingon replied in a heartfelt voice, I see, don't bother, just record it in the book first. The goddess of the Dai Mountain Temple threw a freshly caught perch into the fish basket, turned her head and said to the man in the blue shirt, You are so strange and you are not the same as me, why are you not popular at all? Wu Jiang, who was sitting cross-legged, stopped drinking, slapped the scabbard and said angrily, How arrogant, how can you scold someone so well? Yuan Huang, who was not far away, also turned to look at the green-shirt guest beside Wu Jiang. In fact, he has long recognized Wu Jiang, but there is no need to greet him deliberately. The female mountain goddess Green Waste Empress, who named the ancestral temple as Beggar Field, hesitated for a moment and asked, "Can you take the liberty to ask, what kind of cultivation method do you rely on to achieve such a posture? Today's world is full of strange. What is the most valuable? Of course it's a way. If it can be used for reference, it will be a valuable avenue. Birds have the way of birds, snakes have the way of snakes, qi cultivators have their own way of breathing and breathing, gods have the way to shape and temper their golden bodies by drawing on the incense of the human world, and ghosts also have their own ways to go. It is only said that in today's world, there is an extra kind of copper money on the mountain, which can condense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Qi practitioners other than the gods of mountains and rivers can even eat it. The Hushan faction has the largest amount of this kind of immortal money. In addition, the secret treasuries of the imperial courts of various countries have reserves, but there are more or less. Then there is the cloud-shrouded and difficult-to-find reverence building, which seems to be extremely wealthy. As the goddess of the mountain in an ancestral temple, she always has to recruit troops and horses to gather all the ghosts and narcissus within her jurisdiction. It would be best if there were a few more Qi practitioners who could be worshipped at the Qiucheng Mountain Temple. Seeing the playful expression of the man in the green shirt, "You fool, do you think him a fool?" The green-waisted lady was a little embarrassed. Where in the world is it not a market that can't be profitable and can't afford early? She hesitated for a while. He took out a golden copper coin in his sleeve and said with a smile, "Of course it won't be unpaid. It's not just boasting. This thing is rare. It's unique to Daishan. Just because my family's begging field has an old temple blessing, it's a ghost and the identity is unknown. Who came to me last year, I only know that he was a craftsman before his death and he was best at finding dragons and acupoints, choosing beautiful water and soil, blowing fans, smelting and casting. More insider information should not be disclosed. For example, the copper coin in her hand, which she herself does not know the value of, is the most surprising thing about turning the incense of the temple into reality." Qin Pingan's face seemed to be the same as usual, but he was actually quite surprised. Turned out to be the prototype of a gold and copper coin? I just don't know if the copper coin in the hand of the goddess of the mountain is the first carved mother coin. It's just like setting up a street stall to do business in Baozhai. If the buyer is surprised, don't blame the seller for killing the pig. So Qin Pingan just glanced at the golden copper coins and said indifferently, "Flu. I practice the way of Flu. But this Dao vein is not easy to practice and the threshold is very high. Whether it is successful or not depends on fate. It is not the same as ordinary Qi cultivators. You have thousands of secret books and spiritual books explaining this Dao. You are already a Qi refiner who eats the clouds and drinks the dew and rides the clouds and mists, and you are still drawing talismans." Wu Jiang followed the chick to peck the rice and nodded vigorously, but in fact he was at a loss. Of course there is nothing difficult in the world, only those who have the heart. Learning the Tao is the most important thing in getting the law, and the magic lies in people after all. Qin Pingan wanted to put on a gesture of stroking his beard and laughing, but then he remembered that Wu Di, a Taoist priest who set up a fortune-telling stall, shook his sleeves, took out a yellow paper talisman and said with a smile, "Follow the talisman and refine your energy. It is difficult for scholars to enter the house and it is extremely difficult to draw them, but I still have a small inventory of talismans here. Except for the talismans for personal use, which are used to deter evil spirits, defeat evil spirits and walk freely in the world, there are no taboos. In addition, my generation of cultivators pays attention to a dharma that is not lightly passed on, and treasures that are not exposed. If it is not fate, then it should be kept secret. Today in this autumn lake I met with the goddess of the mountain and talked a few words. It must be a mystery. There is God's will of fate in it. There are not many ready-made superfluous talismans on my side, but only 3. They are by no means precious. If you want to come here, it is always slightly more difficult to cast money than your temple. Congratulations occupying the landscape in spiritual veins. The material of this charm is precious and the mysterious power is hidden. Let me and the goddess of the mountain talk slowly whether to buy or not. Buy it, listen to it before making a decision." Listening to Qin Pingan's eloquent words, it is interlocking and reasonable. Wu Jiang on the side looks strange and his mood is extremely complicated. What Qin Jianxian and that Xianxia drink, aren't they all fake? Wu Jiang, who knew Qin Pingan's identity, was so skeptical. The well-informed empress with green waist was naturally even more suspicious. Unexpectedly at this moment Yuan Huang, who had been silent all the time, put away his fishing rod and said, "I bought 3 talismans. I beg the Immortal Master to make a price." This is what Qin Pingan deliberately suppressed first and then raised, because the one who really knew what was going on was actually Yuan Huang, who had a first glimpse of Qilianqi. "Yuan Huang can't help you." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Since we have a predestined relationship, why bother talking about money? I'll just give you this mustard seed talisman." Gently twisting his wrist, he threw the talisman to Yuan Huang. It was not unusual for it to be as fast as an arrow, but what was unusual was that the talisman floated slowly like a human. Yuan Huang exhaled softly and did not pick up the talisman with his hand, but just hung the talisman in the air in front of him, and then took out a small Wangwali painting box and the talisman gently fell into it. Yuan Huanglian put the talisman and the wooden box into his sleeve, thanked the Immortal Master in green shirt, turned around and started fishing again with the rod, without even mentioning the business. Qin Pingan snorted. "Are young people today so ignorant of martial arts?" Seeing this scene, the goddess of the mountain covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly. "Wu Jiang is full of slander. Stealing chickens will not lose rice. It seems that Qin Zhenxian is not an old Jianghu." Qin Pingan laughed heartily. "Wu Jiang, you don't understand. This is called long-line fishing for big fish." Wu Jiang immediately said solemnly, "It is necessary." Qin Pingan patted the young chivalrous man on the shoulder, and in the tone of a senior Jianghu he said earnestly, "I'll introduce my great disciple of the founding mountain to you when I have a chance. After I learn boxing, I have to find someone to learn from and to practice my hand. The ability is really not true. In the end is gold or copper and iron." Wu Jiang didn't know the knowledge here for the time being. After all, he was young and agreed. Wu Jiang asked with his heart. "Qin Zhenxian came here this time because he was invited by Sect Master Gao to participate in the discussion in Demogwen?" Qin Pingan nodded. "Strive to make one truth clear: the world is still yours. As for whether you believe it or not, toast and fine drink for yourself. The blue waves are vast and the eyes are blue, and the green mountains and flowers on the lake are about to burn." Sword of Coming Chapter 1194. Chapter 1194 Duo Qingyun Yuqing Palace. The peach blossoms of Xianxia City are as famous in the world as Xuandu Temple. Dong Huafu is here to practice swordsmanship, ignoring the cold and heat outside the city. The other 8 fellow sword cultivators have all started to practice the dozens of sword techniques taught by Xianxia City. The ordinary Yushu City Taoist officials, even sword cultivators, can only rely on honesty to obtain these superior sword techniques. Realm rely on merit. Only Dong Huafu just silently wrote down those sword tricks, but did not practice these sword tricks that money can't buy. In addition, Dong Huafu is the only one of the 9 people who has never been granted the Dao by Baiyujing Yushu City. Regarding this matter, it is not that there are some discussions inside Yushu City, but they were all suppressed by Wang Yu. Wang Yu, one of the 2 deputy city lords of Xianxia City, is a middle-aged Taoist priest wearing a golden hibiscus crown. He has a mild temperament and speaks very well. He often comes to the thatched hut to chat with Dong Huafu. Today the position of the city lord of Xianxia City is still vacant, and there are different opinions on who will be in charge of a city. The 2 deputy city lords, Wuxia, is in the realm of immortals, and the other female crown, Xiao Feibai with the Dao name Imo, is also a fairy, but she is also a Taoist sword fairy with excellent swordsmanship. So Xiao Feibai fills the lack of city lords and is better than Wang Xing. The voice is higher. But what's interesting is that Xiao Feibai and Wang Yu are Taoist companions, so no matter who takes over the city of Xianxiao, it is considered that the fat water will not flow to outsiders. The problem is that these 2 Taoist companions are only in the fairyland, and as the city owner, they are a bit mediocre, after all. Therefore a variable appeared not long ago because an outsider came to Xianxiao City, Jian Zuhosu. Although this criminal officer is unknown on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and is not even among the top 10 swordsmen at the top of the city, the flowers bloom in the wall and the fragrance outside the wall is the big monster in the realm of Xuanpu. The key point is that this big monster is still the city owner of the Xianzhu city, which is known as the highest city in the world. Therefore the officials of the 12 floors of the 5 cities including Xianxiao City, are now guessing, is it possible that Hao Su directly serves as the lord of Xianxiao City? There is a guest here at the thatched hut. It is an old rule that the owner is very poor and the guest must bring their own drinks. This is called robbing the rich and helping the poor. Dong Huafu picked up the white bowl, took a sip of the peach juice fairy brew, which tasted delicious no matter how he drank it, and asked curiously, "Lord Xingguan, I heard that you are going to be a high-ranking official again?" According to the second shopkeeper, drinking a cup instead of a bowl will taste at least half the difference. The other 8 fellow villagers are now Daoist priests in Xianxia city, and they all get along very well. The 8 sword cultivators who were not very young would go to Hao Su to ask questions occasionally when they encountered a spiritual barrier. At the beginning Hao Su would explain their doubts in detail, but it didn't take long for Hao Su to sign a contract for them. One rule, one question. That is to say, every sword cultivator in a certain realm can only ask Hao Su once, and the next time he asks a question he can only wait until the realm is broken. In front of me, this sword cultivator who belongs to my own family is really prosperous in official affairs. He can become an official wherever he goes and he is envious. Hao Su shook his head and smiled and said, "It's just a rumor. I made an appointment with Lu Chen before I came, and am only a guest of Xianxia city." Dong Huafu asked, "Is it because I know that I can't be a good candidate so I sell it well, or is it really good, but I don't want to be a good candidate?" Hao Su said, "If you want to be you can be, but it's not necessary. Too much mundane affairs will only delay sword refining." Dong Huafu raised the wine bowl, hung it in the air and asked, "Is this the reason why the criminal officer can't take a sword in the Great Wall of Sword Qi?" Hao Su looked sad, shook his head and said, "I have some difficulties and dare not die. But I have never used a sword to kill a demon. After all, it is a fact. I am ashamed of the trust of the boss Xian. On the battlefield of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, to lure every sword immortal out of the city to fight, every wild monster or domineering arrogant or seemingly reckless shot, is often a far-reaching insidious calculation. In the wild world, in order to obtain a feat of beheading the sword fairy, it can be said that everything is done. The bait for setting up ambush can either be the siege of some young sword cultivators on the Great Wall of Sword Qi without killing them, or it can be the wild demon clan being attacked. The demon is forced to use his life as a bait. On the wine table of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, there was once a saying that it was said that it was first passed down from the Summer Palace. Every sword immortal who grew up died at least 5 future sword immortals. Dong Huafu nodded and said with a grin, "Being such a big official, the realm is still high and you are willing to say such soft words to a junior like me. The criminal officer is still a little conscience and everyone has a hard scripture to read. No, I mentioned it, let's go." This is also the reason why Hao Su is willing to come here often with wine to challenge. At least a few sincere words can be heard here. No matter the realm, the wine table in the world is on an equal footing. Dong Huafu asked, "With the realm of a criminal officer, why don't you go to another city to get a job? An Ascension realm sword cultivator wears not a sweet pastry." The position of Xianxia city on the 12th floor of the 5 cities of Baiyujing is neither low nor high. Hao Su said, "I still have the title of a former criminal so I can take care of you here. In the Feixing city in the colorful world, the new criminal officer is Qi Shou, but Ning Yao is only a hidden officer, so Hao Su really belongs to the former criminal officer in a strict sense." Dong Huafu raised his head and looked into the distance. The giant city was hanging high, immortal. Lingbao City is the place where the second headmaster Yudo attained Taoism, and Nanhua City is the dojo where the third headmaster Lu Chen was taught. The Green City, also known as the Jade Emperor City, was once the preaching place of the great headmaster Ko Ming. It was the first city built by Baiyujing. Only the Ziki building built by Taoist ancestors was the same age. As for the Yunshui building and the Linlang building on the 12th floor, they are all Dao veins passed down by the great headmaster. For some reason Jiang Yunxing, who had just been the city owner of Qingcui City for a few days, soon retreated. The outside world speculates that Jiang Yunxing has achieved a great fortune, and he has to complete a feat of breaking through the 2 realms in a few years and ascending the Tao. In fact, this speculation is not correct. Zhang Jiaolu had hidden in the sleeve of a Taoist robe he named Beat the World's Smart Places, and once hid a transfiguration demon captured from the sky, and then quietly threw it into the Taoist heart of Jiang Yunxing, who was promoted and rich. Just because the so-called Tao is 1 foot high and the devil is 1 foot high, the city owner of Green City is not so easy to be. If Jiang Yunxing can't defeat the inner demon, I'm afraid he can be reincarnated directly. There are at most 2 deputy landlords on the 12th floor, and they must be priests in the fairyland to be competent. However, there is no quota for the number of deputy city lords in the 5 cities, ranging from 1 to 3, depending on the city lord's personal preference. The height of the 12th floor of the 5 cities will be raised and lowered to varying degrees according to the accumulation of merit for each jiazi. Dong Huafu asked curiously, "Lord Criminal Officer, do you know where the headmaster went?" Hao Su smiled and said, "This kind of Bai Yujing's first-class secret. I'm an outsider, where do I know where to go? Next time Lu Chen comes here as a guest you can ask him yourself." I have to admit that Lu Chen is a wonderful person. The peach in Xianxia City and the jade emperor plum in Qingtue City are all recognized as the delicacy of Xianxia in the world. Green City is located in the northernmost part of Baiyujing. A city has one of the top 10 caves, the Jade Emperor Cave, the second of the 36 caves, the Lingshou Cave, and the Axe Cave, and it also occupies 3 of the 72 blessed places. This is the only one in the entire White Jade capital, and even after reading several worlds I can't find a second one. In the Qingming world the mountains are the most fortunate. Heaven is divided into yin and yang, the universe is opened, the turbidity begins to be divided, the earth merges into Haidu rivers, the sun, moon and stars are attached above, the spiritual energy is formed into the Yuezhan mountains, and the lower cave is a blessed land. Within the 14 prefectures, there is no such thing as the 5 sacred mountains in all countries, but each state has a famous mountain with the name of town. Among them, the 4 major states including Yuzhou can also receive the Yu number, which is somewhat similar to the mountain. A Shangshu in the officialdom also leads the title of Taisher, and the rest of the 10 towns do not have the name of Yu, but only receive the town number, so the mountain is commonly known as the 4 towns Yu and 10 towns. For each Xinyue, the gods have built Jingshi governance offices, and the remaining 10 mountain kings are slightly lower. Today the 2 deputy city lords who were supposed to participate in the Yuqing Palace discussion actually visited the thatched hut together. Hao Su could of course see that they were both yin and gods out of their bodies. For the great cause of Xianxia City and the inheritance of incense, this couple really worked hard. Sure enough, Wang Yi called him by his first name and said straight to the point, "Hao Su, while Yuqing Palace has not yet discussed your identity arrangements, my wife and I are willing to recommend you as the city lord of Xianxia City. As long as you nod your head we will be at Yuqing Palace." Bian's real body has the confidence to discuss this matter with the 2 headmasters. The entire Xianxia City's own patriarchal hall has already made a decision, and they all feel that it is feasible for Hao Su to be the city owner. Hao Su was also unambiguous and shook his head directly, "This kind of hot potato, don't eat it. For Jianxiu, everything is virtual, only the realm is the most real. Hao Suji is pure swordsmanship in the 14 realms, and has nothing else to ask for." Hao Su said frankly, "Xianxia City has a limited background. If I were to be the city owner of Green City I might consider it. As the city lord over there, you can logically occupy one of the caves, open it up as a dojo and practice swords with half the effort. In this city of Xianxia, which has only one blessed land, Hao Su doesn't think there is any benefit to being the city owner." Xiao Feibai smiled bitterly and was speechless. He glanced at the husband and he was expected by you. The other party really didn't like a city of gods where a clever woman can't cook without rice. Baiyujing has 5 cities: Green City, Lingbao City, Nanhua City, Yushu City, and Xianxia City. Previously, because there were 9 more sword cultivators in Xianxia City, which had dropped and dropped again and again, finally rose 100 zhang in height. Only the degree of elevation was ignored in the majestic Baiyujing. But Xianxia City stopped the decline after all, which is more important than anything else. Although Qingtue City has been declining since the great headmaster stepped down as the city owner, the height of landing is the highest among the 5 cities, but it is better than the rich family. Complimentary words. Compared with Xianxia City, it is like the former only has a small summer money, but the latter has a grain rain money, so it also spends a snow money. Who is more prosperous? The answer is obvious. Now the height of Xianxia City after being surpassed by Yushu City was already at the bottom. The problem is that it is only at the bottom of the 5 cities. In the past 500 years, it has been surpassed by the 2nd floor. If it goes on like this, Xianxia City will really not live up to its name. Just like some harsh words from the outside states, it is better to change its name to Shengxiala. and the ranking will be much better. Yao Kejio, the old city owner with the Taoist name Ancient Gu, has died and disappeared in the Great Wall of Sword Qi. The old Taoist priest was also the master of Wang Yu and Xiao Feibai. There are more than 6,000 Taoist officials in the city. For nearly 1,000 years, there has not been a great Taoist official who dares to say that he must prove the qualifications of Taoism. Both Wang Xia and Xiao Feibai believed that they had no hope of entering the Ascension realm in this life. In this way, the next city owner of Xianxia City must have enough realm to be able to carry the beam, continue the incense for Xianxia City and revive the Taoism. Hao Su clasped his fists and said, "I'm really sorry, I have a lot of trust." Wang Wei sighed. Disappointment was inevitable, but he still smiled and said, "I dare not force others to be difficult. It is already a great blessing for Mr. After the two deputy city lords and officials left, Hao Su smiled and said, "Dong Haitan, do you recognize the hidden officials so much?" Dong Huafu nodded and said, "I'm too lazy to use my brain. He thinks about everything and Qin Pingon has a feeling that I can't tell, which is unusual." Hao Su asked, "Tell me about it." In fact, as a criminal he didn't say a few words about Qin Pingon, who was a hidden officer for a long time. Dong Huafu hesitated for a moment, "Just talking about one feeling such as walking on the road, even if I don't know you, but I can feel the qi in you, the deputy city lord Xiao Feibai even more, you just don't see it. It's easy to provoke even if those fellow villagers are younger than me and have a lower level than me, but I can clearly feel the qi in them, which is getting heavier and heavier every day. Official style, literary popularity, arrogance to reject people thousands of miles, villain's success, aggressive arrogance. In short, there are many. Anyway, it is a vague feeling. Wang Xia may be an exception, so he is a bit like Qin Pingon." Hao Su was silent for a moment, then said one word, "Ping." Dong Huafu took a sip of wine, nodded and said, "That's the feeling, walking, talking, facial expressions, eyes, sitting down to drink. The feeling that Wang Xia gave me is that they are all plain and they don't make people feel arrogant, nor the kind of indifference that has no desire and no desire. On the contrary, they are very popular, but no matter what their status, they are worthy. You cannot get along with such people, but it is difficult to hate them." The highest place in Baiyujing has no official name, commonly known as Shangqing Pavilion. Daozu occasionally preached here. As a rule, except for the 3 headmasters as well as the younger disciple, the Taoist priest Shan Qing, they are not allowed to set foot here without authorization. The Patriarch's Hall in Baiyujing is called Taiqing Hall. Apart from the Taoist Patriarch and the 3 headmasters, there are only portraits of Taoist officials in the Ascension realm of the past dynasties. However, Baiyujing's Zhu Xian was discussed in a fairy tower called Yuqing Palace, which belonged to a unique landscape and secret realm, and was not located in any city or building boundary. Today, a grand meeting is being held in the Yuqing Palace. Those who are qualified to participate in the discussion, in addition to the chief and deputy city lords and landlords of the 12th floor of the 5 cities, also specially invited some no official and light Tianxian Daoguan, who are very old and have very old qualifications. They have been full-time city lords and landlords for many years. A Yuqing palace as if hanging in the void. The clouds are blooming and the Taoist officials are standing. To discuss matters behind closed doors, one of the agendas is that Headmaster Lu suggested that Jianxiu Haosu, who served as the guest of Xianxia City, deducted half of the merits of moving Mingyue Haotsai to Qingming in advance. If Haosu is in the Qingming world in the future, Baiyujing will not be held accountable for killing an Ascension realm. As for Baiyujing, what should be done? As long as Haosu goes out, he will take revenge when he should. Baiyujing also ignored it. According to the rules of the Yuqing Palace, the Taoist officials could refute any of the will of the 3 headmasters. But today all the Taoists saw Headmaster Yu and didn't say anything, so they pushed the boat without refuting Headmaster Lu. But then Lu Chen added a sentence and there was not so much silence in the council hall, and some Taoist priests sneered on the spot. It turned out that Zhangjiao Lu began to be confused again, and suggested that Hao Su should be allowed to ask any Taoist priest for the sword in Baiyujing with the remaining half of his merits, but he should not be held accountable. Seeing that the situation was not right, Headmaster Lu became anxious. In fact, I found a few close friends, brothers and seniors who believed that they had a good relationship in advance. All of them were agreed. Headmaster Lu personally came to the door and greeted them with anger. It is only said that Wang Dongji, the owner of Linlang Tower, had just treated Master Lu a cup of tea before he came to Yuqing Palace to discuss matters. Zhang Jiaolu spoke with spittle everywhere. He went through all kinds of hardships, dangers, and his life was hanging by a thread. Only then did he pick up the coral pen holder that was leaked from the wild jade city. Today's business, what do I say? You Wang Dongji must not nod, give your brother a show? Relying on these unscrupulous guys, the posture is unreliable. It doesn't matter, Pin Dao still has a brother. Yu Dou looked at the younger brother of that talisman, and finally spoke. In the 100 years that Lu Qin was in charge of Bai Yujing, the guest of Xianxia City, Hao Su asked who the sword was with, and he deducted the remaining half of the merits and deductions from Lu Chen's side. Lu Chen immediately clarified, everyone, it's okay, it's just deducting the merits of Nanhua City, and the injustice has the first debt, and the owner, whoever wants revenge in the future, still has to look for Hao Su. Thousands of thousands don't come. Poor Daoist stubble. Mrs. Wei smiled and said, correct, just now City Lord Lu made a mistake. It is to deduct the merits of teaching Lu Qin, not to deduct our Nanhua City, and it is necessary to distinguish between public and private. The other two deputy city lords of Nanhua City publicly agreed with Mrs. Wei, without giving any face to their own city lords. Zhang Jiaolu should be the city owner for this purpose. He really has nothing to say. This is called convincing the public and winning people's hearts. Lu Qin looked at Wang Yu, who shook his head. Lu Qin felt a little regretful. In fact, it was very suitable for Hao Su to be the lord of Xianxia City. But there was no way Xianxia City couldn't give Hao Su the private dojo he wanted. As for Qingtue City, Hao Su should definitely not be in charge of this city. If Lu Qin dared to open his mouth, Yuqing Palace would be able to drown Headmaster Lu with saliva today. In addition, the number of deputy city masters is full, or it has always been a quota. Not in Baiyujing. Even if Lu Qin had some ideas, he would not agree with senior brother Yes temper. Otherwise, Hao Su would go to Qingtue City to be the deputy city lord, which would not be bad. Xiao Feibai used his eyes to signal to Master Lu to say something fair. No matter what Hao Su thinks, it is the decision of the Yuqing Palace when raw rice is cooked, and Hao Su is put on the shelves. Zhang Jiaolu actually yawned and began to close his eyes to rest. Today in the Yuqing Palace, the oldest Taoist officials are of course Huang Jieshou, Pang Ding, and the others in Baiyujing. However, there are also two youngest juniors who are exceptionally involved in the discussion. They are too young. At this moment they are in the Yuqing Palace like a young blue crane standing on the blue sky. Several major events have happened in Baiyujing recently. First, 9 sword cultivators from the Great Wall of Sword Qi entered Xianxia City to refine their swords. It is said that one of them, a young sword cultivator named Dong, has excellent aptitude, and he is also a descendant of Dong Senging. Then there is Headmaster Yu, who has not accepted an apprentice for a long time. After 600 years he finally accepted a direct disciple from Haoran World. Then there was Hao Su, the judge of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, who flew from the Bright Moon to Xianxia City and settled here. It is said that Baiyujing is very likely to give away a city lord position. Jiang Yunsheng, the gatekeeper of the Hanging Mountain in the past, was exceptionally promoted to be the Lord of Green City as soon as he became an immortal. It is said that it is out of the ordinary, except that Jiang Yunsheng has become the long history of Baiyujing. There are only a handful of people who are not the full-time city lord and landlord of the Ascension realm. And because of this matter, it directly bypassed the Yuqing Palace discussion, which belonged to the two headmasters Yu Dou and Lu Qin. Waves. Finally, it was Zhang Fenghai from Yushu City. On the day he left Yanxia Cave of Xinyue Palace, he betrayed Baiyujing, chose to establish his own business and found Run Yefeng, an unknown Qi trainer Lu Tai. This brand new sect that was born out of nowhere has only 6 members, which is enough to attract the attention of the 14 states of Qingming. It's only because of the cultivators in the genealogy. In addition to the hard work of one of the 10 newest warriors in the world, there is also one of the alternates, LV Bixiao, a loose immortal. There is also the female patriarch of the Yongzhou Xianzhang school, who is said to have passed away long ago, and the teacher of the Taoist Shiyun. Yuan Ying, once one of the 10 young candidates in the world, has 2 preachers, Lu Qi and Chao group from Shi Fu Di. That's why it seems so strange that Lu Tai is the deputy suzerain and he is also the chief worshipper. Outside Daoist officials, few people can make Baiyujing so hot. Zhang Fenghai is one of the few exceptions. Whenever Zhang Fenghai is mentioned, Baiyujing Daoist, regardless of his realm or his Dao lineage, is very sorry. After all, with Zhang Fenghai's aptitude for Taoism, it seems that there is no problem with being a Taoist ancestor. The key is that Bai Yujing lost 2 Zhang Fenghai with this entry and exit. The city lord of Lingbao City, Pang Ding, whose name is Humble Heart, asked, "Where is that Lu Tai? How did he get mixed up with the traitor Zhang Fenghai?" A Lu character, the old Taoist word, is quite heavy. Lu Chen began to look at his eyes, nose, and heart. He was absent-minded and traveled thousands of miles. Could it be that all the people with the surname Lu have something to do with the poor? The 2 deputy city lords of Yushu City, Wuxia and Zhou Xian, snorted coldly while the other asked directly, "Dare to ask Pang City Lord, my junior brother Zhang Fenghai, why is he a traitor?" Pang Ding squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Junior brother? Could it be that I remembered it wrongly? Zhang Fenghai just left the Baiyujing Taoist status, and still keeps the Yushu City Taoist ultimatum? Not long ago the old Taoist priest who drank a jar of long live wine in the bright moonlight, Su Zujing, held a whisk in his hand, and the judge of Yushu City, who is known to be soft-hearted and good-natured, sneered, 'Does Zhang Fenghai have a Yushu City Dao? It's none of your business in Lingbao City.' The master's close disciple, the younger brother Zhang Fenghai, is the biggest, not of their brothers, no one." The old Taoist priest Huang Jieshe, with the Taoist name Wang, the former owner of Biyun Tower, even resigned as the palace owner of Xingyue Palace not long ago, so the old man no longer has a large set of keys on his waist. Huang Jieshe said, "One thing to say, Zhang Fenghai is not a traitor. He was sent out of Xianxia cave by Daozu himself." Pang Ding was dumbfounded for a while. Accidentally hit a hard nail. Lu Chen applauded lightly but silently. "Letting you find trouble in the poor way, is it bad luck?" There was a blue cloud beside Zhang Jiaolu, empty. It was Shan Qing, a Taoist priest who was also a disciple of Taoist ancestors, but was unable to attend the discussion because he was far away from the colorful world. In fact, Bai Yujing did not have a high opinion of this closed disciple of the Taoist ancestor in private. Ning Yao would come to ask him about the sword unexpectedly, and he lost a mess, which can be described as a loss of face. Even if the opponent is the number 1 person in the colorful world, that Ning Yao, I don't expect you Shanqing to win. As a disciple of Taoist ancestors, when did it become so bad? Can he really become the future headmaster of Bai Yujing? In addition, Jiang Yunxing, the new city owner of Green City, was also absent today. Afterwards, in the Yuqing Palace, the high-ranking Taoist officials threw a question to the 2 headmasters. An old woman, the deputy owner of the Ziki building, was the first to ask, "Do you want to interrupt the grand ceremony of the Yufu dynasty in Yongzhou, or to block the divination result afterward?" Although Yongzhou is the smallest of the 14 states, there is a mountain top at the bottom of the water in Dadu on the border. If the dynasty occupying the shrine of the underwater mountain, if it builds the highest standard altar, it only needs to chop the branches of the camphor tree to check the good and bad luck of the 4 states. Not long ago, the Empress Zhou Xian built a grand ceremony to worship as many as 3,600 gods, and she personally served as the main priest. The camphor tree naturally divides its branches in 4 directions, which just point to the 4 states including Yongzhou and Peizhou. In the Temple of O God, there is a sacred soldier of the Yufu dynasty. The name of the gun is Broken Array. The reason why the Yufu dynasty has been able to stand in Yongzhou for a long time is largely due to this magical weapon recorded by Bai Yujing, because it is a token of love presented by Wuzhou to the founding emperor of Yufuzhou. So who would dare to covet this? If Lu Chen was in charge of Bai Yujing, he would persuade the young empress not to act impulsively, no matter how unreasonable or unreasonable. But the problem is that now it is the senior brother Yudo who is in charge of the world. Therefore Lu Chen could only persuade the internal affairs of the Yufu dynasty, but could not stop it. So the last time I went to the Lotus Temple in person, the teacher was unknown and could only return without success. The key point is that there is a huge secret hidden in the Temple of the Lotus God, and Bai Yujing is naturally aware of this, because this is the handwriting of the Taoist ancestors. The reason why a mountain shrine was built on the bottom of the water is turbulent for thousands of years and constantly scoured the temple, belongs to the suppression of the martial arts by the water transport of Dadu. It's just because in that Lotus Temple, in addition to enshrining a famous gun to break the formation, it also suppressed one of the former joint cuts. For 10,000 years, the lotus root has been broken, like a giant spirit holding an object, imprisoning the unruly magic weapon for a long time. The headmaster Yudo said indifferently, Fish Fu Zhu's creation of the grand ceremony is in line with the rules, and Bai Yujing doesn't need to be concerned. Since the headmaster said so, the Dao officials did not have any objection. The second question in the Yuqing Palace discussion: since that two friends' place is a magical weapon that is an ancient relic, she can refine this thing to improve her Taoism. Can Bai Yunli give her that pair of weapons? The armor that has been banned for many years. To attract her as the chief guest officer of Biyun Tower? In this way there is a guest officer Haosu who is a sword cultivator in the Ascension Realm in Xianxia City, and there are still 14 Realm Wuzhou as the chief guest officer in Biyun Tower. Before the seasoned and prudent Daoist could finish the matter, Yudo had already said, Wuzhou has offered to offer this pair of Bai Yunlu armor in exchange for her willingness to serve as the deputy owner of Bai Yunlu. I have already know, there is no need to discuss this matter any further. The Yuqing Palace was silent for a moment. Lu Chen sighed softly. Just know. The female crown Wuzhou can no longer be described as a genius among geniuses. Her existence has overshadowed all the Taoist officials in the world at the same time. Qualification, talent, chance, character, achievement. Wuzhou was the best in the world back then. She was born in a small Taoist temple. With the help of several most ordinary Taoist books and a few master inheriting formulas, she was already in the Jade Pure realm when she was a young girl, and on the way to go out to practice she was awarded the title of the 12 high-ranking gods in ancient times. Part of the key heritage of a founder. After that, Wuzhou made rapid progress on the road of cultivation. Because of this supernatural ability she could both refine things and break through the realm, and she eventually became the #1 refiner in the world. In the past 600 years Wuzhou's own half-immortal soldiers forged treasures, which she regarded as defective, and gave away, sold at a low price, or even left it somewhere, was recorded by Bai Yujing. There are as many as 16. Bai Yujing neither interfered in the affairs of the Yufu dynasty, nor did he attract the old dojo to be located in Wuzhou in Yongzhou, which meant that it was a foregone conclusion that Zhou Xian split the camphor and fortune-telling in the 4 states. For a time the atmosphere in the Yuqing Palace was a little dignified. Lu Chen said, then continue the discussion. How to deal with that Leap Moon Peak? Zuanduguan Sun Huaizhong Daifishan Gaogu Qingshan Dynasty Yao Qing, have the 3 of them entered the 14th realm? The Great Chao sect in Liangjing Mountain in the territory of Yinzhou arbitrarily built a large formation of crepe myrtle, and tampered with the customs of a state. Is it in line with the rules? The results of the selection of 10 people in the world and 10 candidates are extremely strange. Is it possible that Bingjishan Longsanpu is stirring up the water? Has Hongnong Yang of Yuzhou participated in it? At the end of last year, someone from Hongnong Yang's family erected a flag on the top of a mountain at the site of the ancient battlefield in Yuzhou, threatening to eradicate a demon for the world. Who is this demon? Suichu Palace's literary Gao Ping did not hesitate to join forces with the old man who killed his country and killed him in his previous life. Isn't it the most strange thing in the world? There is another character named Wu Yang under the pseudonym Huanjing in the Suichuang Palace. Helping out, this is not what it is like to add wings to a tiger. Wu Shuangjiang's thoughts and plans have long been known to everyone. Bai Yujing shouldn't raise tigers, let them sit in trouble and solve this hidden danger as soon as possible. Monk Jiang